Cheers! Evening all. Old Geek here, and at the moment I'm by myself. It looks like Sax just can't make it tonight. He's moving house, and Elfbait is busy gaming. How dare he? He did mention a few weeks ago that he got a brand new 7-foot by 3-foot gaming table, so I hope he's putting that to some use. He might join us later. And we might get Gingerbeard in later as well. But if anyone else would like to come and join me, you are more than welcome to do so. So I'm just going to say hello to a few people in chat. We have General Nut, Mage's Musings, Halakar, and AB Mark II. 3 of you are playing in my game tomorrow night. So let's see how that goes. Just want to show you something. We have a t-shirt making machine in the shop where I work, and I made myself. I didn't make it. I got someone to make it for me. Look at that. Look at that. One of a kind. Yes. Evening, Squirrel Hermit. How are you doing? How are you doing? I say it's an open invite to come and join me because I don't know how long I'll be able to waffle on for by myself. This stream might well prove just how much I rely on those other people. I just sort of direct them and let them talk. So let's see how we get on. No, Halakar, there's no line of merch coming. As I said, we've got a machine in our shop to do we have a little sideline where we can make t-shirts and things. Can't do it particularly cheaply, but it does a basic job. Evening Slan, yes, new superhero, new fat superhero. I would have looked like a superhero probably 2 or 3 years ago. I didn't have much fat on me then, but I've got this little look. Some people were saying when they watched my video I did yesterday about me driving that I didn't really look fat enough. Just from the side, look, there is a gut there. It's not massive, but there is a gut there. That gut wasn't there 2 years ago. Oh well, maybe I should sell my own merch then. Anyhow, I hope you've been keeping well. I hope you've seen my latest couple of videos. One very tongue-in-cheek, a bit of a joke, a bit of a parody, and a review of Monster Manual 2. A few people commenting on the parody video. It's directly about somebody who records YouTube videos who thinks they're very, very clever, and they aren't. And there's lots of references to him in that video, and quite a few of you get it anyway. Just me being a bit cheeky yesterday morning. Wow, you really would buy a Old Geek t-shirt? There's no need to. No need to. My head's big enough as it is. Seriously, we went karting the other week and I had to have the largest helmet size they got, and it still had to squeeze it over my massive melon. But no, we had a great weekend. We didn't play any games on Saturday because I had to cry off because I got a VIP pass to go and see a rally in the forest with my family because I'd seeded the event, which was great. Very dusty. Then on Sunday, went to watch my daughter play football. She scored a hat-trick. They won 9-0. Marvellous. Really good to watch. Anyhow, yeah, I think, General Nut, I think that smirk at the end, it gives it away. It gives it away. Right. You want the freeze frame of me growling? There is a freeze frame of me dealing with some shoplifters on our shop's CCTV a few years ago, and my gaming group have a habit of photoshopping it onto various other images, which can be mildly amusing. Wasn't amusing for the shoplifters. They got a bit of a shock. Anyhow, Anyhow, right. Yeah, it's with selling merch. I've already got 2 jobs, and at the moment I'm playing or running in 3 games a week, and streaming one night, and trying to use my Tuesdays to do enough YouTube. Omenal has seen that picture. Yes, he can always reclaim his coat. Yeah, we've still got the coat. For those who don't, yeah, you can join me. You can join me, Squirrel Hermit. For those who don't know, I work in a shop, and we were targeted by a group of hooded youths a few years ago, and I flew at one of them. They thought I hadn't noticed them, because I was originally in the back of the shop, and they snuck in and didn't set off the ding dong on the door. And I spotted them. I counted slowly to 3, calmed myself, and then charged at them. And there was a nice freeze frame of me getting hold of one of them as I'm in midair. He wriggled out and left me holding onto his coat. I did ask the police officer the next day what I would have been allowed to do to him, and he says, "Well, no, you're under threat." There was 6 of them at least in the shop, a few more outside. We can see it on CCTV. You're horribly outnumbered. They're all bigger than you, despite being teenagers. They could have been armed. Whatever you'd done to them would have been fine. So, I did scream at them. I swore at them a lot. I won initiative. In fact, I won surprise. I got significant surprise. But he did make a successful dexterity save to get out of his coat. And at the time, I was a lot fitter than I am now, and doing a lot of judo training, working for my black belt. So, yeah, there's a few things I might have tried, but never happened, because he got away with all his scaredy friends. At least 6 of them. They all ran away from little me, 5'5", nearly 50 years old at the time. Anyhow, so Squirrel Hermit's going to be joining me tonight for a natter. Now, tonight's game topic. Tonight's topic for the stream is games that we wish we'd played. And I will say at the very start, I am not good at learning new systems from scratch. Grappling rules in judo are a lot simpler than in AD&D. I'm not good at learning new games from scratch. I typically will learn a game by making a character and sitting down and joining in a session. And even then, if I get a DM's book for a game, then I'll only skim it, and I'll use what I learned from running in the session and just go, bah, and just go off by myself. First time I ever ran Call of Cthulhu, I'd got a copy of a scenario. I hadn't got any copies of the rule books. All I knew was it was percentile based, and if you rolled below 20% of your skill, then it was a critical, and off I went with that, and it still worked. So that's very much my philosophy. So bear in mind, I don't learn new systems very often. I don't run new systems very often unless I've been introduced to them by somebody else running them. So some of these here on my list, I own a couple of them, and I've never run them because I've never really picked apart the rules. I've never really had much of a chance. But I'm going to start with one I would love to play. One of my group bought this game about 3 years ago, and he made noises about me running it, but I know nothing about it. I know nothing about the mechanics. And I'm going to say now, I know that we should not buy things from people who hate us. And this is a game by Evil Hat, who I know hate us. Hate me, hate you. I'm afraid that is a fact. And that is Blades in the Dark. I would love to have a game of Blades in the Dark. Why? Because the whole setting is something that I love. It's set in a Victorian style horror environment. You're playing the part of criminals. It's something very different in that sense. And I mean, yes, Call of Cthulhu Gaslight is set in the same era. And it is my favorite era for Call of Cthulhu. But you don't play criminals typically in Call of Cthulhu. You play investigators. I don't know anything about the mechanics in Blades of the Dark. I've never swatted up on them. It's just the setting that intrigues me. And it sounds like a lot of fun. I know it's a story game, and I don't tend to play and run pure story games all that much, but I'd like to give this one a try. I mean, have any of you lot played Blades in the Dark? If you'd like to tell me about it, that would be great, because that's the idea. Because I'm by myself until people arrive. Omenal might be joining a bit later, and looks like Squirrel Hermit is taking his time to find me. Michael, you wish you'd got to play Middle-earth. I'm going to be running it in Discord very soon for you guys, for some of you lot, those of you who are on my Discord. I'm currently running it for my local group through Discord as like a backup game, and it's going very well. The last session wasn't quite as much fun as the first one, but that's purely because there was less prepped for it. It was more of an improvised, just a travel over land session. But one of the players as well has got a new puppy, and he kept being distracted by this puppy destroying his house, which is never a good thing. He's got a 9-week-old Labradoodle called Elliot. I remember when my doggy was 9 weeks old. Yeah, she destroyed everything. She's 10 years old now. So she's a very good girl. But let's have a little look. I mean, Halakar, you've got a lot of Gamma World stuff, but never played it. Gamma World is something I never got into. It's sci-fi, isn't it? And I'm not that great with sci-fi. Omenal, so Evil Hat are really nice until they get on Twitter. There's nothing in the rule books that sort of set us off as well. I don't know. I only know what I've heard about them. I only know what they said to alienate anyone pretty much over the age of 40. And I only realized it was an Evil Hat game tonight when I was just checking who'd written Blades in the Dark. To be honest, I heard people say disparaging things about Blades in the Dark in the past, but it's a game that intrigues me. I'm proud to see that. I'm glad it sounds interesting. Yes, I'm glad it sounds interesting. Okay, Halakar. I've got Car Wars on the bottom of my list here. I've played a lot of Car Wars as a strategy game, purely as a strategy game, and it's great fun. You've got to set aside a long time for it, because unless you've got the Combat Garage app, even with the Combat Garage app, car creation takes a long time. And you can run it with stock cars, standard cars, but it's not as much fun. Half of the fun of the game is building a car. But I would like to one day give Car Wars a go as an RPG and try and mesh the idea of the Mad Max style game, on the road, salvaging old wrecks, collecting bounties, shipping things across state lines, dodgy things being hunted down by motorbike gangs, all that sort of thing. And I'd like to see players portray characters and strip down cars and build up whatever their cars are, or maybe a big van if they go around the big van, and just develop it from there and develop a vehicle organically. The only problem I can see with it is that it's really lethal. It's a very, very, very dangerous game. Maybe it's just because I tend to play it in battle to the death arena type scenarios. I've never really played it to try and survive, but I know I once sat there with a few friends making cars for 3 or 4 hours one afternoon, and we bust open the arena, and one of those cars rolled and burnt and exploded in the first 2 seconds of combat and killed the occupants. It's his own fault for doing 60 odd mile an hour and trying to do a handbrake turn, but that's another matter entirely. But yeah, Car Wars is great. Car Wars is great fun. I've got tons of it, absolutely tons of it. An RPG type campaign of Car Wars, I think that'd be a lot of fun. So that was on my list. I got most of my Car Wars stuff from eBay and gaming conventions, going through the secondhand stuff in gaming conventions. And I've got probably the equivalent of 3 or 4 box sets and a number of extra maps and tokens. I've got a few of the scenarios as well. And it's one of those games where I just pick up and play occasionally. I did play it with my kids a few times. And there was one guy from my old Tuesday gaming group who was quite a fan of it, but he's moved away. I need to break it open it in the future. Anyhow, before we go on to my next game, still waiting for Squill Hermit to arrive. I was going to say hello to a few more people who've popped in. I don't believe I've seen Wizard Jim before. Wants to try Ars Magica. It's not a game I know a lot about, but pop in and tell me all about it if you want. Now, I've never got Traveller because I'm a D-class post-apocalyptic as sci-fi. I don't. I'm all right with the whole Mad Max wrecked cars with machine guns attached to them type thing, but I'm not really into spaceships and all the technology that's faked for it. And thus I've never bought Traveller. I don't own a single Traveller item because right. Andrew, played a lot of games over the last 40 years, but once I'd like to try a tune. I've played it, didn't like it. Paranoia. Played it, ran it, magnificent game. Absolutely wonderful. It's a one-shot, cleanse the palate type game. A lot of fun. Brilliant. Marvel Superheroes. I've got a near complete collection of Marvel Superheroes stuff that cost me about £25 on eBay. I have played it a few times. I've played it quite a bit in the 80s. It's a really nice system, the Fazarip system. The modules are very, very linear. Most of the adventures are written for specific groups. And I remember having fights with my teenage friends because none of us wanted to be Captain Marvel. She's really powerful, but no one wanted to play a girl. It was I want to be Captain America. I want to be Spider-Man. Don't want to be Captain Marvel. That's the sort of things that we did when we were 15, 14. But I've got tons of Marvel superhero stuff. It's not my genre, not these days anyway. I did collect the Secret Wars comics in the 80s, but I've never really been much of a comic collector. Burning Wheel, never played it. Hollow Earth Expedition, never played it. No. So there's a couple on there. I've heard mixed things about Burning Wheel. That's a case of I've heard good things about the system, but I know the guy who created it is a bit of an idiot. Yeah, we all think back and wish regarding people we've lost touch with and so on. You never know when a group's going to come to an end, do you? In early 2020, we were happily playing through Horror on the Orient Express. Never got to revive that game because that group has never fully got back together again because of priorities, family, work, all changed in the last 2 years, which it has done for a lot of people. Happens. It's a shame. You surprise me, I'm Omanal. You've always come across as the sort of person who has played absolutely everything. I don't know much about Twilight 2000. I'm sorry. Who are you saying no to there, AB? I can't think. Was that no to Mad Max being sci-fi? Yes, I think that was. So yeah, I mean, now when you come on around 10 o'clock my time, tell us all about Ars Magica. I mean, I have heard about it. I have heard interesting things about it. But beyond interesting, I don't know anything about the actual game itself. And this is always lovely to see. Yes. 6-year-old Goblin Dungeon, about to have a Jack and the Beanstalk style module. That's exactly how to introduce role-playing games to kids. I tried to introduce my kids to role-playing a few years ago. My daughter played for a little bit, but it was just me and her. My lad never got it, but I think I did it wrongly. I was too mechanical. I hadn't long been back in the game for a while, and she was only about 7 or 8. I should have really made it much more fairy tale, much more story-like, but ho hum, that's the way it goes. Duralumin, I played in one game in the Birthright setting, and it was when 5th edition had just come out, and the DM tried to run it with 5th edition rules. It worked all right. It did work all right because we only had a small group. I think we only had 2 or 3. We only had 3 players, so the fact that the characters were more robust, it did help. But I don't think he used the Birthright combat system either. I think he got the combat system from somewhere else as well, the mass combat. So it was only really Birthright in setting, and there weren't any mechanics from the Birthright box. Yep. I've heard all about the Traveller. I've got to give Traveller, I suppose, a chance for its character creation. I've heard so much about it. I haven't played Traveller, nor has Omen Owl. Right. Anyway, I'm going to welcome for the first time onto my channel. Here we have Squirrel Hermit.
Hey, ye old.
Let me just put these on. I can hear you now.
Hey, all right. Hopefully, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I've got these on.
Okay, good. Well, for some reason, the laptop I have, it just wouldn't let me come through or get on. So I jumped on my phone, and, well, here I am. So
there you are.
So thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on. A pleasure to have you on. I know we've been sort of passing by each other for a few months now, haven't we? Just sort of saying hello in various chats and that sort of thing. So it's nice to have you on the channel.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Tell me about a game that you wish you'd played at some point over the last 40 years, because I know you're about as old as me, so it's probably about 40 years.
No, yeah. We're in the wheelhouse of the same age.
Yeah.
I caught you speaking about Traveler. I have never played that as well. I'd like to try that one. And I also would like because I've picked up a few things of Merp. I would like to try that one.
I'm going to be running a game on in a few Saturdays' time.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch. Hopefully, I can make it. Hopefully, our different time zones are allowing.
Yeah.
I would also, even though this is it's a newer game, a newer version, I'd like to try the newest version of the One Ring.
That's on my list. There it is. It's there.
It reads really, really neat. I mean, there's some neat mechanics that you could, in my opinion, easily smudge over into almost a current game. Some of the traveling or the journey rules and stuff like that. It's neat.
Well, they will be taken from the original One Ring, and they'll also be very similar to what was put in Adventures in Middle-earth. It's all taken from the same style of game. And I'm going to come to the One Ring in a bit, and I've got Adventures in Middle-earth on my list here as well as another one to talk about for the same reason. Those traveling mechanics look to be beautiful.
Yeah, they look neat. I'd never played it, but I did own the books for the Adventures in Middle-earth, the 5th edition. I forget who put those out.
Cubicle 7.
Yes, Cubicle 7. I had a stack of those, and a friend of mine, a buddy of mine, he's really a Tolkien fan, a Middle-earth fan, and he might not be, I don't know, we have lost touch, but he was at the time a 5e fan, and I had those chunks of books, and I was clearing shelf space, and I says, I'd love to play it or run it, but I'm probably not gonna, so I gifted those to him, so hopefully he's enjoying them. I haven't spoken with him in a while. So I've read through those, and yeah, both the traveling, the journey rules, really fun. They look really neat. I would like to experience them at the table.
Yeah, definitely. And here we go. There's now 3 of us. Hello, Elfate.
Hey, LP, what's up, buddy?
Managed to actually get here today.
You're sounding distant again, Elfate.
Oh.
Explorer.
Yeah, it's still picking up my other mic. Just a moment.
You said in Discord that you had a game session planned this afternoon. How'd it go?
Just a moment.
That good?
Well, he's concentrating.
I'm trying to get my audio back. How's that work? Is that better?
No, it's still distant.
Okay.
Yeah, I can give somewhat of an opinion. I'm on my phone.
How about there?
Still distant.
You guys continue. I'll let you know when I'm done.
All right, no worries. Anyway, I interrupted you in full flow, didn't I? There, Squirrel Hermit. So, where were you? Oh, okay. Let's go over to see what chat have had to say.
Test.
Still distant. Michael, you've really never tried a game. I mean, yes, I love AD&D. AD&D is the game that defined the 80s for me, and it's the first game I wanted to go back to when I got back into the whole hobby. And I used to think I would have been just happy playing AD&D all the time, but dipping your toes in the water in other games, it only makes running AD&D even better as far as I can see. I think running games like Call of Cthulhu make me much better at improvising and describing and keeping action going. And certainly systems, just use the best bits of systems, or even just hints of systems, just to improve other games. It's what they're all there for. You don't have to be just stuck with one game all the time. But then,
Yeah.
All right, I think I'm good.
That's much better. That's a
Excellent.
lot better.
All right,
That's a lot
cool.
better.
So, yeah, games we would have liked to have played.
Well, go on then, fire away. Give me a game you would have liked to have played that you haven't.
Up to a certain date, the list is pretty short, because back in the day, I was lucky enough to almost play just about everything that hit print and was in my area. I never played Traveler, but I can't say I ever really had a huge desire to play it back in the day. Star Frontiers ended up being kind of my sci-fi game for the longest time, and then when D6 Star Wars came out, I played that a lot.
Yeah.
Games that I haven't been able to play, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay.
That's on my list as well.
I have the original, produced by GW, I think third edition, the big greenish book, and we tried to play it, but we never really actually got anywhere with that. There's a lot of newer games where we've had like a board of attempts to play those, and by new I mean made in the late 80s up to now. But there's a great game called Justifiers, small press, science fiction again, but it's that one's really fun because you play a host of corporately owned characters who all have a buyback stat for their contract, and you're getting flung across space on one-way trips to land on planets and justify them for the corporations before they come pick you up. So you have go. Oh, what?
Do you have more or less chance of survival than you do in a game of Paranoia?
More, because you're a skilled team. It's not played for yucks. It's played serious. It's interesting because it's got a pretty good history. It was all done digest format as far as the books go, and they ended up with like 6 or 8 books by the time, and 2 editions by the time the game petered out. And the second edition was just a cleanup of the first. It was the same system and stuff, but your primary character races were humans, altered humans who were genetically engineered super soldiers who couldn't really adjust after the war that necessitated them, and so they kind of contract out to the corporations or organized crime, and or generally get in trouble because they can't live with polite folk. There were high G humans, which we always nobody ever played them because they're basically an excuse to put a dwarf in the game. So, and then there were the betas, and the betas were beta humanoids, basically the second generation of animal human hybrids. You had alphas, which were giving a brain, high functioning brain to a regular animal. So like, a golden retriever that would go out on a team with you. And the betas, though, were totally human form, human shaped, and they ranged everywhere from insects to reptiles to mammals. And those were the ones that were really costly, so their buyback was huge. And you were property of the corporations, and you would go to these planets, and their version of FTL was done through this very small, it was a gate that had a finite dimension, sort of like Stargate, but they had to be built in orbit. And so they could only be open so long. And so to get to these other planets, they'd have to locate where they are, pinpoint their coordinates, and then chuck you through this gate in a shuttle that fits the maximum dimensions they could get for the time the gate was open. So lengthwise and its outside diameter would fit through the gate. And it's a one-way trip. You get to the other side, the gate's not there. So you have to land on the planet, do your job, and figure out if it's useful for the corporation, and then set up your return gate on the planet, they could do gate stations on the planet, but to like blind transport, you had to be up in orbit. It was really cool. They did like an organized crime source book. They did a Ares Marine source book, which had, kind of described how combat worked in an environment with those limitations, like actual warfare. They had a cyber med tech source book, and they even had a book that covered like weird hybridization. So what does the hybrid between a raccoon and a jaguar beta look like?
Okay.
And in that one, they also started getting into exotics, where the corporations started taking alien life and trying to fusing them with human DNA to make alien betas and stuff. And it was kind of a cool game. The system, it's one of those games where the system is probably not worthy of the universe, and you almost want to immediately swap the system out for something else. But that's high on my list. I've started games of it, but it's never gone anywhere.
Well, I'm just going to give out a few hellos because hello, Adam. Nice to see you back here. Gone all German on me. Guten Tag, Herr Geek. Guten Tag, Herr Pender. J. Alexander. Hope you haven't missed too much. No, just me rambling by myself for the first 20-25 minutes before people decided it'd be a good idea to join me. As I've already said, I am going to be running Merp in Discord for lots of you chaps, hopefully in the very near future. So sign up for that. And I am already running Call of Cthulhu. In fact, I'm running it tomorrow night. And there's been a few people in chat who played in last week's game. So I will be running a session on a Saturday afternoon, my time, about 2 till 5. And that will be starting on the 17th. So it's going to be first come, first serve for spaces in there. The one on last Thursday went extremely well. Hello, Edor. Nice to see you back. War Disjaya. And I think that's everybody. And a few minutes ago, I was all by myself. Hello, Gingerbeard.
Hey.
Hello. It's been a while. How's it all going?
Nice to meet you, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'd say Gingerbeard meet Elfbait, who doesn't have any colour left in his beard.
No, it is ginger. It was ginger before it turned white, though. So while the hair on my head is mouse brown, my facial hair came in red for whatever reason. So.
I may have lost most of my hair on the top. I've never yet found a grey hair on me.
I take mine off by choice. So.
Right, so let's lots of chatter in chat. Ador mentions paranoia. Has everyone who's online with us at the moment played Paranoia? Hands up if you haven't.
Oh, I have.
I have
You
not.
You have not. Gingerbeard, have you played Paranoia?
Fumbling teenage attempts at running a Paranoia game. So, yes, have played it. Probably
Paranoia
not in the way it's meant to be. But
it never passed my seriousness test back when I was younger. I have a hard time getting silly in RPGs. So.
It wouldn't pass anybody's serious test, but as I've said, it is the most fabulous one-shot palate cleanser. If you've ever got gaming burnout and just want to go silly and have everyone bickering because they're supposed to, because that's how the game works, then yes. Paranoia just it fits that bill perfectly, and it allows you to be the most sadistic, autocratic, authoritarian DM imaginable. That's how you're supposed to play it. You're supposed to just sit there and be an absolute git to all the players, and that's how the game is meant to work. And it works brilliantly like that. It's so much fun. Yes,
you get to be a god smashing ants.
Yes. Now, and you are an insane god at that.
Now that you say that, we should have told DK to run his Saturday game in Paranoia when he was looking for a new rule set.
I can't. Actually, I'd love to see DK run Paranoia. I think it would be highly amusing. DK hasn't been on any of our chats for a while.
I scared him away.
Did you? Oh,
I don't think we meshed well.
oh, oh. No, DK sound. DK sound. I still play with him alternate Saturdays. Though he's fallen out with DCC and he's looking for a new game to win that with. Right, so the next game that I want to put on my list, and one of you have already, some people have already mentioned it, that's Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing. For those who've played it, anybody played it?
Nope.
I've made characters and started a campaign.
I've been reading the second edition because I was thinking of running it over sort of the autumn and Christmas, but I am really struggling because from a D&D sensibility, it seems so railroady in how it thinks you should give out XP and stuff that I can't get on with it. Love the aesthetics of Warhammer Fantasy, but yeah, just can't mesh with the adventures.
What I want to know about it more than anything, because I've been told over and over again that I would enjoy the mechanics because it's very, very low fantasy, very gritty. You start off as rat catchers and beggars and things like that, and you have to try and build your way up. But I'm not a fan of the 40k style game. Is it designed with the 40k universe in mind, or is it designed to be much more medieval?
No, it's separate. So fantasy is a totally separate thing.
Yeah, good. Totally the old fantasy world too, the old world.
Right. Good.
Yeah, because it's one of those games where you could play it forever, not ever run into a monster, and I don't think you'd ever care because it's a rich enough world with just people. You know, the guys at old GW put in a lot of time and effort into making that world breathe and feel like a world. Yeah, so I mean, I've read a lot of it, and I used to play Warhammer Fantasy Battle, forever. So the old world was great, and then they went and blew it up.
Yeah, I've read and played a game. Well, I guess I don't know. A lot of folks don't want to mention the name of it, but it's pretty much Warhammer Fantasy Second Edition type rules. That game called Zweihander. So I recognize what you fellas are speaking of and touching on, but I'll leave it at that. It was fun.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why, but everyone zip online. Don't mention this game, so I won't. Whatever. But
they can talk about as much as they want. Games Workshop can't copyright a mechanic, so.
Yeah. Oh no, it was more for the creators of Zweihander.
I think it's more of a
rabid self-promoter.
Oh, yeah.
They were dastardly or underhanded or something, or I don't know. I didn't know at the time. It looked like a neat game. I'd never played any of the Warhammer Fantasy games, and I picked up a copy, and we had a blast.
And if you're familiar with 5th edition, there's also Shadow of the Demon Lord, which is kind of written with that.
Yes, Robert Blob.
The with the Warhammer feel in mind. So
we mentioned him a couple of minutes ago, and here he is, as if he's summoned. Hello, DK.
Hey. I have arrived. Hello.
Hello, you're right,
guys.
I'm good. Just back from work.
Oh, is it work that's kept you off joining in streams and stuff recently?
Kind of, and my own prep, and I've just been kind of in a slump lately. So,
No worries. Well, drag yourself out of the slump with a chat tonight.
Yes.
Come on, hey.
So DK, straight in at the deep end. A game that you have never played, but you would like to.
Well, if I can be real with you guys, there is a game. It's called Fatal. I'm kidding. No. If I'm being honest, there's a game I really wish I could play. I played it once or twice, but I want to play it more. Is Lords of Olympus. I really love that game.
Isn't it a diceless game?
Yep.
Okay.
And it is so much fun. It's so much fun.
Diceless.
Look, okay. Let's not disdain it for dicelessness. I like it because it's Greek. If it were the dicelessness, I would go to Amber. I just like it because it's Greek.
Oh no, I mean, Greek is awesome, and I love Greek mythology. But as soon as you say diceless, I'm just like, I'm
Bleh. Yeah.
I like
If
my
nothing
dice.
else, if nothing else, it's a good source book for gods. If nothing else.
Yeah. I haven't. Okay.
So but yeah, that's my pick. I'd like to play that one again.
You'd like to play Lords of it. You are all mentioning a lot of games that I don't know much about. So, and I have to admit, I mean, I've got this big gap in my gaming knowledge between 1992 and about 2012.
Do you know Amber? Do you know the Amber dice system? Oh, okay then. Right.
But never read it.
When I came back to gaming, I dived straight back into D&D style games, and it's only in recent years I've branched out to things like Call of Cthulhu and dusted off my MERP again and dusted off Paranoia again. So I am going back into finding out more about games I should have played at the moment. My next one, I'm gonna pull down one here that I own. I have played one session of it, and I believe it was Squirrel Hermit who mentioned this one.
Yes.
I would love to run a game of that at some point, but I'm in the one session that I played it. I didn't learn enough about the mechanics in order to feel comfortable about diving in and learning the mechanics, because as I said, I am terrible at reading a rule book and digesting mechanics. I learn by doing.
Yeah, me too. It's in piecemeal and parcel, and yeah, I'm the same way. Usually, if I run a new system, we all just stumble and fumble across it and keep playing and keep learning. That's I'm guilty. Same way.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it is a beautiful book. It is such the artwork, the love. I read about a quarter of it, and the way they've written it, you can tell how much they care about the source material. And it's the same people who then went on to write Adventures in Middle-earth, their 5e hack that proves that 5th edition can work fine in a zero magic setting.
Oh yeah.
I played one session of that, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It worked absolutely fine. And I loved it. So I mean, prove to the idiot online who say you can only use 5th edition rules for high fantasy, which is an absolute nonsense. It's better than standard 5th edition. You all right over there, DK?
Oh yeah, I'm just listening away, man.
Hear lots of things going on in your background.
Oh, my dog's barking, and I'm just checking in on her, and my washing machine is tumbling. So I'm just making sure that the house doesn't go up in flames. Basically, yeah.
Being male, you're not very good. Being male, you're not very good at multitasking because we're not.
Can you folks hear a cricket?
Yeah, I just have too much ADHD.
I do hear a cricket.
Yeah.
That's it.
That ain't me. That shit ain't me.
It's in the basement, and
hey, if it was yesterday, it would be me.
There hasn't been a spider big enough yet to feast upon said fat cricket.
I had two of them having a conversation in my basement yesterday.
Miniature terrain. I've been throwing things to shush this cricket this whole time. So if you see me looking around and something fly across the screen, I'm trying to shut the little bugger up. I apologize.
Right, so I better catch up with chat because chat have gone off and done their own thing while I've been saying hello to lots of people joining. So let's see. Yes, Grumpy Old Slan, you do need to get your act together and get on Discord. It's not perfect, but it is gaming, and you'll get to know lots more nice people. It's how I met DK and Gingerbeard through Discord. In fact, I think the first time I said hello to Squirrel Hermit through Discord. Elfbait, of course, I met through here.
I found you on Discord.
And Halakar, it looks like I'm going to have to run a game of Paranoia on the channel at some point. The amount of people who haven't played it is very, very disappointing. I'm guessing some of you feel the same way about the fact that hardly any of us seem to have played Traveller as well.
I would like to play that one.
Adam, you can play on Discord on just a cell phone. It's not perfect, but you can do it.
My youngest does that. As long as I don't have a lot of screen sharing stuff going through other apps and stuff, it's fine. Like theater of the mind, it's fine.
I heard it works just fine. And
I've heard something about a Monty Python RPG. Leave it alone. All I'm saying is leave it alone.
I don't get it when
are we not talking about the game that I play? Are we not talking about the game that I run?
Definitely stop Monty Python.
They always want to make these games out of comedy TV shows like Monty Python and
Community
and stuff like that. Well, also they did the Red Dwarf RPG at one point, and I'm sorry, unless you're that cast with that sense of humor and that kind of writing, it's not going to be the same. Yes, most D&D games do degenerate into Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but
we think we're as funny as them, but all we're doing is
the fall part into the Holy Grail. That's more of an organic type of thing that happens naturally at the table.
Yeah,
it's not really written.
Yeah,
it's more about quoting the movie than anything else.
Yeah, part jokes and quoting movies, and
And those of you who aren't from the British Isles, you won't get this statement. If it is written by people from the north of England or Scotland, it's right grim up there.
While I've been reading through some of the Warhammer Fantasy RPG stuff and old white dwarves, one of the things I've come across is that the kind of old Warhammer Fantasy idea of dwarves is more based on Yorkshiremen, not Scotsmen, like everybody does them, which is an interesting take. I know it's hard to distinguish beyond accents because they're cheap and miserable, regardless of if they're Yorkshiremen or Scotsmen. But
I remember reading once somewhere that everybody's like, okay, well, Britannia is supposed to be the French and the Empire is supposed to be the German. They're like, well, where are the Brits in the game? And then the creators came out with they're the orcs.
My favorite one is that where the Dark Elves are would be Canada.
Yeah. And then there are the High Elves, which is just a blatant ripoff of Moorcock, and
But back to Monty Python. I mean, the whole it's grim up north type thing. If you ever seen the Monty Python scene where they're outdoing each other as to how hard it was when they were younger, that's the sort of thing you get with Northerners. Right. So it's
North FC.
Omanal, so is that why people don't like the guy from Spylander?
Yeah, well, that and the fact that he's just a massive piece of shit anyway. So
don't mention words, DK.
Fair enough.
Well, I mean, like he constantly tries to sue people. I mean, he lies about people all the time.
See, I don't
know much about him.
I don't know anything about him at all.
I just know the game.
Yeah.
But
right,
we need that cricket again.
Everyone,
It got quiet.
everyone,
I silenced old Jiminy with the throwing of the glue towards the old refrigerator. I swear I did not smoosh him. He just went.
there went your conscience. Everyone in the Discord for the stream was talking earlier about owning like Amigas and Commodore 64s and ZX Spectrums. Did any of you have the Monty Python game on any of those systems?
What?
The Holy Grail one?
No, it was just
Oh.
a generic Monty Python one. It was like Parodius, like a side-scrolling shooter, but then there were like platforming sections. My only memory is, back then on the Amiga, like the anti-piracy stuff was you had to own the rule book, and it'd be like, oh, on page 23, what is this? But the Monty Python version was like different forms of cheese that you had to look up in the game booklet.
I don't think that one ever made it my way. The earliest Monty Python one I've ever encountered was the Holy Grail game back in the PC era. But
I've never played a Monty Python game on a computer.
the Holy Grail one is basically it's a pixel hunt with something like 245 items or something that you have to locate through the entire thing.
Wow.
Sounds like a nightmare. Sounds like
But
a
it's
nightmare.
also hilarious. I mean, I doubted that you could make a computer game that had the same, laughability as actual Monty Python, and we played that and just died the whole game.
To answer Omen Al there, that's the first edition of the One Ring. That's the original.
I'll jump in real quick to get that off of eBay or anything secondhand. That is a gem. That is pricey.
Is it?
Yes.
It's I've peeled the price sticker off there. That cost me £20 at the UK Games Expo 3 years ago.
The cheapest copy that I've seen, this was, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, that was in good condition. It was going for around $180 US.
I'll cherish that.
Is One Ring a British design game, or is it made in the States?
Cubicle 7, so
I think it's the States.
Yeah. I mean, it's got dollars on the back, so it's going to be.
But it's also out of print, that edition.
That's
way out of print.
And we live in the day and age where
I just
stuff
figured
is
if it was
instantly collectible as soon as it stops getting produced.
Yeah.
Yeah. I figured if it was like, oh, it's abundant in Britain but rare in the States, that probably would explain why it's so expensive.
Like copies of 2080.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Oh, weirdly enough, I've just looked up Cubicle 7 is an Irish games company.
Well, we're all wrong.
Here's a vote for Diceless Games. So DK, you've got a friend in chat.
Nice.
DK, meet Andrew. Andrew, meet DK.
Hello, Andrew. Join Geek's Discord and we may discuss this.
Yeah, you guys, sure.
Mage's Musings. I was planning on catching up on all the content of yours that I've been missing recently at work today, but my boss was there for most of the day, so I didn't get a chance to. Unfortunately, he won't be there tomorrow or Friday. So,
wait, does Mage's Musings actually have a YouTube channel?
It does. Mage's Musings. That's Merlin Stegandalore.
Does Mage's Musings have a channel? I didn't know that.
It does, yes. It's all review caps of gaming sessions, but he does it all with puppets. Quite interesting. There's a touch of humor in there. It's something different. It's something interesting. And
that's kind of wholesome.
Wholesome slaughter on a puppetry scale.
Yes. And I was offering you some advice here, Squirrel Hermit. Apparently, chickens eat crickets, so get yourself a chicken.
Chickens eat everything, including each other.
You've got to put up with chicken poo, and instead of a cricket chirping away, you'll get pop, pop, pop.
I raised chickens.
One bit. I let the cricket chirp away, but being here talking, annoying folks or whatever. Hey, I'm sure that little bugger is still alive. He just has realized, oh crap, Someone's here. I'm going to be quiet.
Laying low.
Yeah, but I'll sit down here and draw or read or whatever down in the basement, and that little bugger, he'll chirp and sing away, and it doesn't bother me personally one bit.
Hello, DM James, and no, I don't think any of us have played Traveller. It's
we look like, now listen here, sir. Look like, yeah.
I'll have you know, I intentionally didn't play Traveller.
Okay.
And even Omanal, who is joining us now, hasn't played Traveller. He's played every other bloody game in existence, but he's never played Traveller. Hello, Omanal.
But
Hello.
yeah, we've never played Traveller. But are we really missing out?
You know what? Here's the funny thing, though.
Have we?
I'll be
Was anything of loss? Was anything of value lost if we didn't play Traveller? Really?
You know what, though? Here's the thing. Just like Elfbait said, Star Frontiers got it. And I'll be honest, I never saw a book for Traveller until
press X to doubt.
like 15 years ago when I went to a major city. At which point, to be honest, I hate saying this because you want to talk about snobbish. I looked at the front cover and I'm like, what the hell? Like, you guys couldn't even pay for artwork? Okay.
Yeah,
Then
that's
the
why we passed
chaplain's
them up back in the
silent.
day. You'd go into the store and there's D&D books with demons and all the third-party stuff for D&D with elves and demons, and then Star Frontiers is there with a space monkey and a bug and a flaming wreck and full Larry Elmore art, and then there's Traveller, which looks like the manual for the drill your dad just got.
Yeah. I mean, no, he's not kidding. It says Traveller on the front. There's no artwork.
I
That's
get that
it.
now. Steve. Looking at it now.
Well, okay. So now you want to talk about this? Because
And of course, if you opened them up, they were pretty much like Courier font too. So.
Oh yeah. Well. You know what? Speaking of the old D&D books, I'm going. Oh my God, they're like 8 font. I said my eyes can't take this nowadays.
If we've ever seen the rules compendium that came out for Beckme, oh my God.
Well,
3 column.
Well, that's what I mean. They're all in there. Anyway, to talk about, you were asking about Blades in the Dark. I've not played Blades in the Dark. I read it. I said, well, that's kind of cool, and I liked the way that they went for the system. I said, well, let me go look at a couple of the other books. And then the things that did attract me, which I did play, only one of which was Scum and Villainy, which I really liked because you can do Firefly, Cowboy Bebop, or Star Wars using that. And I said, oh, okay, this is more my kind of thing. But the other part is you want to talk about games under a similar system I would like to play. And they're the exact same things. One is Band of Blades, which is basically, how do I want to put this? What it reminds me of is Battlestar Galactica set on horses. You were part of a legion, you got wiped out, and you are the sole surviving remainers of with you in 4 squads. What happens is that as you play the game, you have specialists and you have recruits. And as you move through the game, and you have a certain time frame to get to the end, and I mean it's almost a module in the game in itself, basically. But the idea is that which is different than most of them, but really your adventure is about 2 sentences, and then the DM has to make it up on the fly from there. But I really like the idea because you're trying to. Now again, I haven't played it, so it may fall completely flat. But I did watch the actual play by the creator, which I thought was actually a lot of fun to watch. I know they're all woke. That's fine, but I'll be honest. Interaction, it's funny. The interactions I've had with people have always been really nice, and then they hate on you whenever you get on Twitter. So I'm like, what the hell?
they become menaces behind the keyboard, and
yes, the 9 angry folks on the internet. Blah blah.
Yeah,
but see, for Band of Blades, is you're being chased. And it's basically your legion went in to go fight this undead Cinder King, and he wiped you guys out, which shouldn't have happened. And now you're trying to retreat back to this fortress, and you have it a couple different ways. I mean, you can play it probably 2 or 3 times and not have anything close resembling to each other. But as you're being chased, you have to get enough resources and everything else to succeed as you try preventing your squads from dying. And you can play specialist, and then your recruits can get promoted up to specialist over time. But but I like the idea with it. The monsters are fairly simple. So Band of Blades reminds me just so much of Battlestar Galactica, except you're on horses trying to herd this small group of people while you're being attacked the entire way. And those are your adventures as you move through. So I really like just reading it was very good, but you have to have players that also enjoy doing some of the logistics background. And then
resource management and etc.
Yeah.
Yes, which I like in some ways. I mean, it's not that it's that detailed, but you have to, like, each one of you will play the commander, which determines the mission, and then another person will play the logistician, which determines on what resources are allocated to your group to get through this. And as you slowly move through, anyway, I like the idea on it. Again, I don't know how it plays, and I've heard some people complain it's very dark, which I could see that, and it's something you probably need to break up between, throw in paranoia or something so you can laugh, every few sessions. The other one I really enjoy, and again, this is reading without playing, is Wicked Ones. These all use the same system, which is the Forged in the Dark. But Wicked Ones is basically you play monsters. It reminds me of Dungeon Keeper.
I've heard.
And this one is not by Evil Hat. This guy is just as his own. So if you're worried about that, then don't. It's by Bandit Camp.
To be honest, I mean, it doesn't bother me all that much.
Yeah. I'm just saying for those people who are, that says don't buy this. Well, the Wicked Ones isn't. They printed their own, but you play basically each of you plays monsters. You have your own little thing. It's kind of meant to be tongue in cheek while being fairly. You can make it really bad if you wanted, but it has that feel. And the end of the game is basically when enough adventurers have decided that you have bothered the people too much, and they raid your dungeon and kill you off. And that's how the game works. Is you're basically building a dungeon. So as the game keeps, as you go through different sessions, like, well, I want to go build this, and so like, okay, I'm going to build an alchemy thing, and you get different powers. I like it. It's really cool. You get to play different monsters. You can play a kobold. You can play like an orc and a spellcaster. Later on, they have, if you buy the full, and you can get it free. That's what's really good for Drive-Thru RPG. You can get the PDF basic for free. I liked it so much about the deluxe, but I'll be honest, you don't really, that's only an extra 20 pages.
I like the sound of that. I made a note of that to something to look up because I do like the sound of that. I played a lot of Dungeon Keeper. Thoroughly enjoyed the game.
That's what I was thinking. Sounds like Dungeon Keeper.
Yeah, but what a wonderful game that was. Yeah, what a wonderful game that was.
Isn't that kind of the whole reverse dungeon concept that they always talk about?
Well, yeah, there's been a few games that sort of failed at doing that, and there was an attempt at doing it for AD&D, which
also failed.
Yeah, so it'd be nice to look into one that comes with a recommendation.
And it's free. I mean, that's what gets me about it. You can read the rules.
Technically, legitimately free. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like I said, there's only like 30 pages out of the entire book, which adds a few more powerful monsters. Now, they don't call them the same thing. It's like you get the Doom Seeker, the Brain Eater, which is a Mind Flayer. You get a Face Stealer, which of course is a doppelganger. You get the Goldmonger, which is a dragon, and then you get a Doom Seeker, which is basically a beholder. And that's what you really do.
You can play monsters as proper bad guys and not as heroes.
Well,
yes.
Yes. And you're expected to do that. You're expected to be
good.
And the whole point is every so often they roll to see what comes into your dungeon. And, different things happen. Like something might catch on fire and you have to try putting it out. Otherwise, you could lose like your alchemy lab. So it just seems like that kind of fun. But every so often you get an adventure group come in and you just pray that they don't kill everything because they can walk through most of your stuff in the dungeon as they're coming towards you. But yeah,
I said I was planning on catching up on Mage's Musings videos at work tomorrow. I might have to balance it in between getting a copy of this and reading that as well and doing no work at all.
I mean, again, free. Why not?
Yeah. Right. I'm going to come to another game that I've never played, and I've left this one until an hour and 9 minutes into the video on purpose, because when YouTube checks videos, and whatever. They don't tend to go this deep.
The
because
eye of Sauron falls upon you, geek.
There's a bit of a story that goes with this one. This is a game that I've played once, and it is Tales from the Loop. Have any of you ever played Tales from the Loop?
No, I
No.
haven't. I haven't from.
Really?
Know the art, watch the TV series, but
I played one session of that at the UK Games Expo about 4 years ago, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was the idea of playing the part of we're all 12 or 13-year-olds in the 80s in a very dark setting that had a very sort of adult feel to it, while we were playing the part of kids. So it had that awkward balance. But the guy who was running it, okay, did any of you ever hear about the scandal that kicked off at UK Games Expo a year later?
No.
I only hear about American scandals. Thank you. We have enough of our own. Thank you very much.
This is also why I'm banned on a few gaming forums, because I almost defended him. Didn't
What
fully
did he do?
Do tell.
Right.
Do tell.
At the Games Expo in 2019, I think it was, there was a bit of a scandal about a DM being kicked out. Somebody went onto Twitter and said that something disgusting had happened in a game that had been run at the expo, and that she didn't want to say anything at the table, but straight after the game she went to Twitter to complain about it, and was backed up by one other person. And apparently he'd hinted that they'd all been sexually violated while they were knocked out on drugs in the scenario that he was running, in the middle of a Friday or Saturday afternoon session that people have signed up to at a convention.
Wow. Yeah, I heard about that.
It's a little tone deaf.
Within 24 hours, Twitter was alive screaming about a paedophile DM.
Oh, I was on here. True or not? Oh, wow.
And running a game in which underage players were playing underage characters who'd been involved in sexual practices against the players' wishes, and it had been thrown at them without them knowing.
Wow.
I will quote, I believe it was Winston Churchill when he said, a lie can get halfway around the world before the truth can get its pants on.
That's what the story had become, and the BBC got hold of it. Printed as if they were true.
Flashbacks to the Satanic Panic.
Yeah.
The truth behind it. Now, bear in mind, I was at that Games Expo, and I nearly signed up for the offending game. And the only reason I didn't sign up for it was because the Cthulhu Masters was happening at the same time. So I chose it. And I remember looking at it thinking, that's that DM from last year. And this wasn't Tales from the Loop. He was running Things from the Flood, which is the more mature, late teens version. And I remember seeing the advert. And the advert was 18s and over only, horror game with a club 18 to 30 feel to it. Now, those of you who are British and of a certain age will know what Club 18 to 30 holidays are like. They're basically loads of people who've just turned 18 who go to Spain or France or Greece or whatever, spend a whole week doing things that their parents wouldn't feel proud of them for. But they all go home afterwards, having all just gone berserk for a week. So if you sign up for a horror game, 18s and over, with a Club 1830 feel, what do you expect? Seriously.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would see if for some reason, I don't know how, maybe someone from the States was there and they didn't quite understand, but
They were Brits playing it. They were
sure
Brits playing the game.
90% unlikely.
And mysteriously, as all this was coming out, the original advert for his game was taken down and hidden. So you couldn't go back and check it. You couldn't go back and check it. And then now, all I said in the forums afterwards was, let's not crucify somebody based on Twitter. Let's wait for a few facts to come out. And I was immediately thrown off to RPG forums for suggesting that they might be lying on Twitter or
been mistaken. Heaven forbid.
So
yeah, no, I get
so for upholding the standard of the rule of law, the mob banned you.
Yeah. And the thing is,
which principle of the rule of law are you going for there, DK?
The thing is, I fully.
No, I mean let's not just.
No,
let's not just
the principle of law. It's the principles of justice. Let's be different about these.
There we go. Yeah. Sorry.
innocent, proven guilty without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, that's why I said like rule of law. You know, the principle of let us not just
I think that's
devolve into mob justice, basically.
Yeah,
the thing is, right, let me say this though. I firmly agree with the point that to run a game on a Friday or Saturday afternoon at a convention where anyone can sign up for it, even if it does say over 18s only, in the middle of the afternoon, which is a horror game with potentially sexual themes to it, even if they're telegraphed beforehand, is not a clever idea.
That's what I was meant by tone deaf. It's a little, it's like maybe not the best idea.
At the end, stupid picking that scenario. Even if he did or didn't do what it was claimed, he was stupid picking that scenario. But the way Twitter reacted and the way forums reacted afterwards is what turned me against Twitter originally. I'd never really discovered anything about Twitter until then. And when I saw what happened, that is absolutely disgusting.
But I agree with Bait. Yeah, like that's a dumb move for a convention game, convention theme. Dumb.
You play with strangers. You don't invite strangers to that game. You play that with your friends. You play that with people you know.
Agree with you, old Geek. Though, hey, you were warned. So it's kind of that's just personally, I would run something that I would think I wouldn't necessarily run something at a convention, which I have not, that I might run at my table with the people that I know and have come to know over years.
That's why
of course,
play with strangers.
Walking into this table, I don't know if Phil. No offense to anyone, I don't know if Phil that's at the table identifies as Phyllis, unless it's blatantly obvious. Something like that. So I don't know who or what I'm going to offend, how I'm going to offend someone. So you kind of keep it as hey, this is a dark game. We're probably maybe all going to die, but we're going to have fun to our demise. Or hey, this is we're a zero to hero kind of session. We're going to do that, whether it's outer space or fantasy. You got to, in my opinion, again, I've never run a convention game. You should keep it. Keep it simple.
There were certainly 3 or 4 Call of Cthulhu scenarios that I know of that I would never run at a convention. And General Nuts is here, and those of you who are playing in that scenario that I am running in Call of Cthulhu, yes, you were violated, but you were warned beforehand, and you knew exactly what was coming.
When Geek breaks out the Coomer vampire voice, you've already lost.
It appears right here's a prime example. It appears General Nut, he's having fun at that COC game, violated. Hey, we're having fun.
It was a damn good session. It was a really good session. That was. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, did you run one recently, Geek? I wasn't aware.
Yeah, last week, and we went.
Nice.
Probably the conclusion tomorrow.
Nice.
Mage's Musings is in there. AB is in there. General Nut is in there. So some of these guys in chat are the players in that game.
Cool. Nice.
Okay, I'll bring up a game since we are all talking dark, and I'm going to go completely the opposite. I would like to play a game of Pugmire or Monarchies of Mao.
That's a cool universe. I actually wanted to. I suggested a game to my family at one point because I helped kickstart the Pugmire game, and I'm like, all right, you and all your friends can play, but you have to make a character that is based on your dog.
Yeah, no, yep.
You have to play your dog.
That looks like
as a fantasy adventurer.
So just so you know,
Can it be a werewolf version of your dog?
Nope. Pugmire is an interesting universe. I really dig it. It's sort of a almost Vancian universe where like there was a high society, futuristic society, and man is gone, and in his wake, all of the animals have evolved, or they were kind of uplifted before man left. Excuse me, and that they're sort of now living with this deified version of man. Like the basic tenet is be a good dog.
it's and they want to know where the humans went because there's just like disappeared is the whole thing. So it feels like that. They use they use like plastic chips and things for money instead of
and like they have pieces of tech like tablets and stuff, like iPads and stuff that they don't understand what they are, and so it's very magical to them. And then the Ministries of Mao, of course, the book that came out later on, that was the cat world, right? If I recall correctly, it was the Cat Kingdom.
So here's the thing: you can get the free phone PDF for Pirates of Pugmire. So that's another thing that's good. And right now, Onyx Path is having a 10%. You only pay 10%. So if you want to buy Monarchies of Mao for like for this week, it's like $1.50 for the PDF.
Ooh.
Nice. And Squeaks, what is the other one? The Pirates of Pugmire, that's like $1.50 too. So like if you want to buy a lot of the Pugmire stuff, just probably spend a total of $5 this month, and you get Monarchies of Mao, the Pirates of Pugmire, and but yeah, I like it because it is kind of the family friendly version of 5e that I like. It's
a simplified 5e system.
Yeah. But I like the world. I like the feel of it. It doesn't feel like, as much as we all want to talk about dark and gritty, it's not that way. It's kind of it's kind of like, it's going to be a perfect game, probably setting like 8 to 12-year-olds through.
It seemed like it had enough there that adult players aren't going to get bored. And there are some like kind of dark and spooky elements to it, like some of the things that sort of pass for undead or demons, are kind of odd. But
that's the whole point of that. But see, that's one of those things. What I meant is when you start your kids off 8 to 12. But you can play it all the way through. I know that DM James likes it as well, and I thought, there's a fun one that I have the PDFs for, but have never run.
That segues in. Go ahead. No, I was just saying that segues into another game that I've never played that is also designed intentionally for beginning RPGers, and I never got to play it, even though I downloaded it because I hope my kids would want to play, but then they just jumped ahead and played D&D. But it's called Meddling Kids, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is the game of playing a Scooby Gang. And you kind of create yours from scratch, and it has all sorts of teen archetypes, or and the genius thing about the game, because it's designed to teach kids role playing, is that the Scooby character is played by the DM, and the reason for that is just like in the shows, whether it's Jabberjaws or Captain Caveman or Scooby Doo, whenever the teens got stuck, Scooby would show up with like a banana peel on his foot or lean against a wall, and it would flip around. So the DM can have the DMPC that's in there do something to unstick the investigation.
All aboard the railroad. Toot toot.
Not a railroad. You are wrong.
Okay, there's a difference. There's a difference between the railroad and guiding your players. A railroad is if they deviate anything, that you punish them.
And how much? I know. How different is that from going into the inn in the village and saying, "Hey, I hear this."
I know.
They're up on that rock up there.
Gentlemen, here's the difference between railroad and not railroad. Are you having fun or are you not?
Okay. Like with
mechanical
Geek,
game.
whenever I mention Method 5, just know that is code word for I'm trying to fuck with you.
That's fine. You're
Don't be-
Yeah. No, it's I thought it was a really good mechanic to put into a game to teach kids, because especially to teach kids mystery games, because this is an early RPG that's leading kids towards things like Call of Cthulhu or Gumshoe or other investigative games rather than D&D.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, you're going to need that mechanic.
Quite a few.
I mean, I'd rather
are very linear.
look. I'm glad games like this exist that have Scooby-Doo rather than turning Ravenloft into Scooby-Doo.
Well, that's what
we've gone into like an interesting thing what's the one, Into the Loop? Grumpy Old Slan on comments has just mentioned kids on bikes. Like,
yeah.
I'm trying to find like that. That one might be the best example of a kind of I would like to run like a mystery solving teens game. And everyone I've looked at so far
there's even a D&D themed one called
Dungeons and Demogorgons. It's by the guys who did. It was that was it. Yeah. I have their zombie game. Yeah, I have the zombie game that those guys released. It's not bad. It's just kind of.
Me and my wife watched Scoob the other night, and. It wasn't amazing, but I'm glad they threw in Captain Caveman. As soon as Captain Caveman turned up, I was like, "Hey dear, this guy's gonna fuck everyone up." Captain Caveman's the bomb.
Kids on Bikes
just travels around with 3 lesbians. He's fucking awesome.
I will say, Kids on Bikes. The only reason I haven't played that one is that it doesn't actually end up being very good of a game. It's kind of light on mechanics, and it ends up being more in the storyteller realm. So, and
I don't mind mechanics as long as players still feel like they're moving ahead and can improve themselves. But yeah,
why I never really liked Dungeon World. Dungeon World or any Powered by Apocalypse system always seemed like a board game turned into an RPG. Like, I know that D&D started as a miniatures game, but it mechanically felt like I could be reading everything off of little cards that have a D6 result for your character to be doing on the board, like Mansions of Madness or something. Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons why I enjoyed that Tales from the Loop game is because the scenario that we played in that was investigative, and the way things unraveled, very interesting. I thought that DM did a great job of running that scenario, and I know a couple of the guys at the table did as well. And that was a fairly adult scenario. There was a twist in it that was a little bit murky. Nothing too excessive though. But also because it was set in the 80s, it made me think back to when I was a kid in the 80s.
Now then.
Again, I'll jump in. Free League, all the stuff that I've read from them, they put out some good stuff. They do.
Yeah. You know what though? Speaking of games I've never played,
Alien's awesome.
Any of the Free League games I want to, but the problem is either I'm short 2 players, because I know that there's a certain ideal range that you should have. Like, I'm not running a game for 2 players. I'm just not. I want 4. But yeah, Alien is great to read. The other
Alien could probably run pretty good at 2 if you think about it, because isolation is part of the equation. So.
It is, but the problem is that Alien goes through so fast. It's like DCC level funnels, for the Alien RPG.
But I feel with that genre, you kind of expect that, and you're just like, hey, it was Alien. We're all dead.
Yeah, but I would like to make it past like minute 30 of playing the game. That's what I'm saying. Is that I like when there's 4 or 5, because then you start playing people against each other, and there's something that paranoid aspect to it.
To be fair, Nemesis, the board game, is the best Alien experience ever. If anyone has ever played Nemesis, the board game, not you would, because it's like £100. But if you got Tabletop Simulator, you can download the set from Steam Workshop. That is the best Alien replication experience I've ever had.
I like the starting scenarios. The starter set for Alien is fantastic. Reading it is good, though. Everyone I know that Max Liao hates that. He's like, well, it can't last for a long time. Sure, it can. You just don't put the alien in there, and you keep it fairly low and understand if they get into combat, they're dead.
Yeah.
But I would love to have it that they go down to different places, and depending on what things, you can do the investigative side. You go through that, and then as you're dropping stuff off from place to place, you find the little tidbits of what are they really doing behind the scenes.
Seems
And
like
the
you're
whole thing-
suggesting that we play Traveller.
The alien universe without the xenomorph is Traveller. I
made the comment on like Aaron's
Yeah.
Discord earlier when discussing like the Alien RPG, like that idea, that first like 20 minutes of the first Alien film where it's just space truckers. I'd be down for that.
I'm pretty sure that's what the guys who wrote Traveller were. They're tapping into that same zeitgeist there.
The problem that it's not that I have anything against Travel. Like I said, is I never read the rules until this year.
I still haven't.
And they're okay. The problem is finding it, number one. Number two is finding players. It is very easy to say, look, I have the Alien RPG. And all my friends are like, oh, cool, we want to play that. If I say, oh, look, I have the Traveller RPG, they're like, nah, no
The
thanks.
what?
Love it. Like you spend 6 months of sessions hauling around goods for Wayland Yutani, and people are like, when's the alien going to show up and kill us?
I think if you're going to run an Alien Universe game, the best way to run an extended campaign and not have everybody get bored and want to just end their union contracts is to run a Marine campaign.
Actually, well, I was thinking more of the Space Trucker campaign. Like I said, but you put in what is the but you put in the what is it? I can't remember. But basically the Space Marshal.
Oh yeah, the Marshal that they basically borrowed whole cloth from Outland.
Well, that's my whole point. Is you have the Space Trucker. You have
because Outland is in the Alien
Marshal.
Universe, as far as I'm concerned.
And then you can put a corporate. Well, I mean, you have to have a good mix. The problem I have with the Marines is that I have the Marine book, and I'm like, yeah. You want to talk about railroady? Anyone that's been in the military is like, guess what? I determine where you go. Whereas instead of the Space Trucker, it's like, where would you like to go? And so
where can you afford to go?
Yes, well,
because you don't have any fuel left.
Well,
speaking
I see Andrew Henson. Here's the problem again, and everyone ignores it. You have to get the players willing to play, and Traveller is a hard sell.
Yes.
Alien is not. It's that's what everyone seems to forget about. It's like, well, I just play Traveller. That's great.
Then why aren't you?
Traveller. I mean, Star Frontiers, like you said, at least had the cool looking. Now, to be fair, Mongoose has a lot better in there too. Now that they've started doing better artwork, but yes, if I looked at Star Frontiers and the classic Traveller looks like you said, it looks exactly like a manual, which is fine for games, but it is not inspiring to an 8-year-old, and it is not inspiring to people who have done nothing with it. And I said, yep. So I'm not saying that you can't do it. Yeah, you can do just about anything with Traveller. But the problem, I think,
the source books for it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I like.
I'm just going to interrupt this interesting discussion because there's a few people now in chat and who haven't seen this.
Yes, I've seen it. Yes. Again, I wasn't kidding ye old real quick. I wasn't kidding. 30 USD plus shipping. Give me one, please. I'd wear it.
Nice.
Really, I'd 2X.
Geek.
Isn't there an Etsy? Well, I still think that you need to put with the Geek. You need to put the little blue graph paper behind it, like you do on your.
The way it is, simple T-shirt design. I love it.
The girl who made this in our shop, I did try to do it with an ink press, which would have got the blue graph paper behind, but the image was pixelating, so I would. It's been done with transfers, so which couldn't do the graph papers on the transfer. Anyhow, I'm going to move us away from sci-fi. Anyway,
okay, that's right.
I get lost when you're all talking sci-fi, and I'm going to make an admission.
Well,
here
I have another game.
Okay, go on, you go ahead of me then. Go on, DK.
No, go for it. Go for it. I didn't realize that you were done.
I'm going to make an admission.
No, you go ahead. You're the host.
And I have never played.
No, seriously, you're the host. Go ahead.
Behave yourself. I have never played Moldvay Basic D&D.
I have.
I ain't doing anything.
And you know what? The other thing I like is OSE, because you can get that now.
No.
And I like the OSE because they get back to what I really love, which is class equals race. Oh, I want to play Drow. So that's different. Well, he said the advanced version, which I like. So
the advanced version's cool.
I started with the Mensa box sets.
Yeah, the Mensa, the Beckme.
I started with Beckme. Yeah. I've never played Moldvay Basic.
Yep, but no, Beckme's fun. I have those. I did as well. The Moldvay, I mean, they're both awesome. I had them both. I have played them both, and I have done the OSE and AD&D currently.
I've never played OD&D either. The original white boxes.
I don't really have much of an interest in playing OD&D myself.
The Alexandrian did a good job of going over the old D&D, the white box, and with him discussing it. I mean, it takes him 3 hours or something. But anyway, with him going over the whole thing, you begin to understand on where D&D is coming from, and then why things were chosen. And first, I think from a historical standpoint, it's great. But from a game standpoint, I'm like, eh.
Yep. Nope. I agree. It's more of a archaeological, historical kind of dig and something to have, which I lucked out years and years ago before the whole within our hobby and folks, before D&D became popular, which really it is for us, but it really isn't. Anyways. I lucked out, and I have all of that white box. I have the 3 original booklets, the white box. I've got 3 or 4 other booklets that come out during and after that. Got all of that stuff, and the original, third printing of Chainmail, introduction to the fantasy stuff. Got all of that. I dug around. I got it all for like $300. It was cheap, and I was lucky enough this past Gary Con. James Ward was there, and I got him to sign the inside of the box. I tried to put down Tim Kask. He was he's old, and he might have been a little kind of timid, gun shy from the lingering COVID, the lingering germ fear or whatever. And no shame on him. He does have his health conditions, and he's older. So I would have liked to have gotten that, signed on that box as well, just because I think those are the last 2 people that had anything to do with what was in that box set. A lot.
Well, Luke,
I'm aware that Beckme and Moldvay are very, very similar. I have read the Moldvay rule book, and it I started with the red box Frank Mensa set in 1983, and then very, very quickly jumped over to AD&D. So Moldvay was just 2 years before me, and I've read it. I know they're very, very similar, but I would love to play a game with just the pure Moldvay rules in the book, just for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah.
And expert, to me, basic and expert are identical. Once you pass 3rd level, which didn't take that long, you immediately bought the expert, and you decided to go through X1, which was the greatest text crawler ever. No,
isn't it like the first one, basically, though?
well, it was, but I mean, I still enjoyed looking back at, because I even have the the OAR, the old skill, the original Adventures Reincarnated. And looking back on it, I still love dinosaurs and the
X1 is my favorite module.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, that is a good one.
I'm a big pulp fan, so having an island full of dinosaurs and giant apes and natives and everything was right down my.
I also like Jarvis Cocker.
Is that Barry? Is that Barry or Pete's?
to say, shut it, James. Go and watch my Gary Bay video and have a laugh.
You know,
Is X1 Barrier Peaks?
Isle of Dread.
No, I love it.
That came in
no.
the expert set, the blue box.
Still think
All right.
Mystara is the campaign world that 5th edition's been looking for instead of instead of trying to warp Forgotten Realms. Mystara already had all that crazy shit. So
Fucking yes, self-made.
The turtle guys are from Mystara. The cat people are from Mystara.
I guess, yeah.
Well, what is it? I saw they were showing that the number of sales, which surprised me, was the fact that the basic, the Beckme stuff outsold the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons stuff.
Well, the Gazetteers, that world was so rich.
You don't know what D&D is. DM James Garrity Jr. What the hell are you talking about?
Geek, 1 sec. I think I'm delaying, so I'm going to quit out and come back in.
Okay.
But you know what? The other thing that I would like to do, and I don't know where this counts because we're still talking pulp, is, and I would like, but I want to be a player first before I run it because I don't quite have my head wrapped around it, is the John Carter 2D20.
John Carter 2D20.
You've got blank looks from everyone.
Yeah.
Who makes it?
Modifius, if it's 2D20. Yeah, it's Modifius.
No, 2D20 is. There's a lot of other 2D20 systems. You know, there is the 2D20 by Modifius.
Yo.
Well, yeah. Well, that's who does it. It's John Carter of Mars.
I was going to say that would be jerkery answer would be Modifius.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what I was going to say. And I loved the books when I was a little kid, even though I punched the kid who gave the book to me initially, which was something completely different. Well, he was messing with my birthday cake, and he gave it to me he gave me this book for my birthday with John Carter of Mars. And when he was messing with the cake, I punched him in the stomach. Anyway, but that was irrelevant to the book. Anyway, but
John Carter of Mars causes violence. No, American Airlines.
Right along with Legos, because that's what he was using to screw up with my cake. But no, but the whole thing was you're looking at it, and it's like Conan clicks with me. It works really well. But John Carter of Mars decided to go, you know what? Conan has too many rules. We're going to make it even simpler. And I went, and so I don't know how to feel about it, so I would love to be run through that game, but I don't want to run it myself because I don't feel comfortable with it.
Hey, seeing as we're talking about Mars, a game that I never actually got to play that I loved the universe and it kind of dovetails into John Carter is Space 1899.
1889?
Yeah, 1889. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I was confused. My brain always wants to merge it with Space 1999. Or maybe I just played 10 years later. I don't know. But no, that one was great because it hodgepodged all the old interpretations of the solar system. You had ancient civilizations that were moldering and kind of deteriorating that were part, they were part, John Carter, but then they were also part Bradbury and his Mars, and then you had lizard men on Venus, and then you had two different races on the moon. You had the little kind of stunty, big-headed guys in the City of Science, and then the Selenites, the bug guys who were up in the upper tunnels, and you had Liftwood. It was how they got their flying stuff, and it was just this weird mashup of colonial powers on Mars, with just this, like, they even had like tentacle people, the tentacle Martians up there from H.G. Wells. They just they were a degenerate species. So
I've only seen it, and I was like, what is the attraction to it? But it's funny, and this is why I kind of liked when they had the Trove. Yes, I know that they were all pirated, but it allowed me to look through the books to understand what was going on. And if I liked the book, I bought the physical copy. And that's probably what got me into Conan and several of the other things by like Free League and stuff like that. Because unless your friends have it, it's really hard to tell sight unseen what you're getting. And there's so many great RPGs out there, and there's so many crappy RPGs as well. You don't know until you see it with whether it clicks with you or not.
I just want to pause you there for Omanal to applaud you, because I totally agree. I hate PDFs. I won't ever run a game from a PDF.
Nope.
I don't buy PDFs. I only buy fully printed books, and I love to skim read something before I buy it.
Yes.
So many things are only available from online sources here in Britain. It is quite limiting. So yes, something like that Trove. I've ended up buying so much more stuff up here because that place existed than I would have done otherwise.
I used it as my virtual shop shelf. Go through it.
And I mean, it's the same for music, things like Napster and things like that. Probably my favorite band ever are Joy Division. And I'd gone 30 odd years of listening to dark gothic music. And people have been telling me, oh, you should listen to Joy Division because they'd be right up your alley. And I'd completely ignored them. Up until about 2010, I thought, oh, I'm going to listen to some Joy Division. And I downloaded it from a dodgy streaming place. And I loved everything. And I bought a big box set containing all their albums, all of their EPs, all their studio outtakes, everything. I would never have done that hadn't it been for downloading this stuff.
And here goes the applaud to folks that, okay, I'm going to somewhat freebie or pirate to browse, and then you actually purchase what you enjoy and support. Yeah. Kudos. That's the way I think it should be done. Yeah, it's free. It's out there. Come on. Torrents and whatever. Duh.
But would you steal a car?
Let me take a peek.
In the right circumstances, yeah.
Well, I'm going to be a
I
little
don't like it. Okay, well, what's the point of stealing a car? To resell it more than drive it?
No, it's a joke. It's the reference of online piracy ads from like the early 2000s. So
I remember.
That's all.
Speaking of games that we're going to talk about, and again, this is why it's good to be in these communities where you hear people bring all this stuff up. I'll be honest. I had the first edition of Earth Dawn. I hated the mechanic. It turned me off as soon as I saw it. I thought there were some good ideas in there, but after listening to Max Liao talk about it, I'm like, you know what? I could do this, but I'd like to be run through it and see whether my hatred of the system really was that, or if I just didn't like the way that it looked. And those are two different things. So, those are the ways that I would like it. So Earth Dawn is one that I would like to go in, but the other part is you only have so much time to read books and stuff, and I still have tons of books to read. I can say this much, a little bit different, which I've been playing, and then I said, the system didn't quite gel with me, but I know some people love it. The Cypher system has some great things in there, and Monty Cook has done some better advice than what you can find in D&D in his Cypher books, and I love some of those things. I just wish it was a slightly different system, and that's my only thing for that one.
Yep.
The other one I'd like to try besides Earth Dawn is I'd like to try Savage Worlds.
Ooh,
I've played that. It's good. It's a good system.
I've played it several times.
I own several copies of it.
You have a handful of Savage Worlds copies. Yep.
It's very smooth. It's very intuitive. It is a nice system. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed playing Savage Worlds.
One of my son's favorites, actually.
I still like to play all of these things they talk about for Free League, Forbidden Lands, which I think if you want a dark, grittier one, I would love to play that one or to run it. But I think I that's one of those. I like the mechanic where it's like, well, you don't have to succeed. It's just you'll get something bad happen. But if you roll again, something bad's going to happen. What do you want?
Yeah, it actually works out. It's a fun one. It does. I ran a Forbidden Lands here for 6-8 months. We had a blast with it.
I think the mechanic. I like the equipment mechanic. You can roll it and then you can break it.
Yeah,
And
the
I like
usage
how-
die.
Yeah. But I like the fact that it has 3 color dice. That's the only problem is you have 3 color dice, which, to be fair, pretty much any RPG person should probably have like 6 different colors of dice, just because we've picked them up all over the years. But
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. It's easy. I even bought a handful of for everybody's table. Not the normal. I don't know what the normal size die is, but the one's a little bit smaller, like the 10 millimeter or whatever, because you usually use a handful more of those dice than your stereotypical D&D dice or whatever, because it's a little bit dice pooly. We had a blast.
so I'm going to bring up another one here, which I know I'm probably going to get yelled at, but I've liked the 3rd edition a little bit better. But this is one that I feel could go completely the wrong way or not. And I had a great idea, and then it sort of fell through with COVID. Was Exalted, 3rd edition.
I know nothing about that.
I've
Nothing.
heard
Very, very super
Only by
powery
name.
kind of fantasy.
You're basically playing demigods is the best way to go for it. And you're working your way up from being a minor demigod. Well, the best way is you're playing like a Greek level hero that then moves up to demigod status. That's from like Eastern, like flying through the air and chopping stuff up. But I love the lunars and I love the shape changing aspect. And it seems like it would have a lot of really cool aspects to it. The system is just, I'm never quite sure. And that's one I'd like to run through. Well, no, I'm sorry, Mage's Musings, like 5
Hello?
No, they're just.
Eddie then.
Back.
What, say again?
You're back.
Eddie then.
Oh, Jesus. I thought, I don't know what the hell was happening. Weird. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, Exalted is basically like playing a 10th level. You start off like a 10th level D&D character and work your way up from there. It's a higher level than that. So yeah, you're not playing the gritty. I've got to go through my drudgery. If I'm going to go through my drudgery, there are better systems out there, like Forbidden Lands.
Yeah, you start out as a hero, going to even more of a hero, so to say.
Yes.
That's why I liked Warhammer Fantasy. You start out as a shit collector, and then you become a hero.
Yeah.
Well, you graduate to
You graduate to a senior shit collector, and then you might actually get a job as a doorman at a brothel, and then you might become an adventurer.
Third burglar to the doorman.
Has anyone?
I know another one I'd like to. Go ahead. What?
No, I was asking, has anyone played Twilight 2000? Because I've been meaning to try that for a while.
That is one I have played, the old one.
Yes.
Not the new one. The new one
From the
intrigues me.
80s.
The new one came out at a very odd time. When it came out, I'm like, ooh, unfortunate world events when that one came out.
Well, no, see, I thought
right
it
as
was
the
nuclear.
Ukraine was getting invaded. So.
Did it? I thought it came out like a year before that happened.
Ukraine's been invaded since 2014. So.
Oh yeah. I keep.
To be fair and all that, well, yeah, well, no, the whole Twilight 2000. Well, I never thought we'd get so close to it in modern days.
Yeah,
that's far to go.
The 80s is coming back in all ways, but including imminent nuclear death. But
well, and I will say this as someone that actually got put on a bus as part of a nuclear evacuation when I lived in Germany. I was like 8 years old, and they're like, "Okay, we're going to practice getting the families out of Europe." And they put us in a little bus to go through, and I hated it. My mom's like, "We have to do it just in case."
I played through 2 editions of Twilight 2000. It's not a game I've not been able to play, but it's a game I have been able. And it had some Traveler-esque elements to it because your character, a good chunk of your character generation was circumstantial. I mean, you had tours like, what were you when you before conflict, and how many, what did you done, have you done, and then you'd roll for your equipment because you're supposed to be kind of ragtag, right? And so you could end up with really odd things. Like I had a British tanker I was playing who had a chieftain, but he had a chieftain, him alone, in his chieftain. And so the rest of the group, all my friends were like, oh yeah, I'm going to play a Navy SEAL and I'm going to play a Green Beret. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I'm like, I want to play a tanker. And I actually managed to roll the tank for my starting vehicle. And they've got like a Humvee and a trailer full of gas. I'm like, that's awesome. We can gas up my tank.
Yes.
And most of that campaign was literally us rolling up to townships and parking my tank on a hill so I could then crawl up into the gunner's seat, load a shell, crawl up in the gunner's seat, and then the rest of the crew would go down to the village and go, all right, you see that tank? If you don't give us a bunch of water and a bunch of gas and, all your ammo, he's going to start unloading on you. And of course, they don't know that there's only one guy in there, and I can fire one shell every 10 minutes.
Were you allowed to get help? I mean,
I could. You could hire people, but a lot of the problem with the landscape is you'd have to pay them, but also most people you encounter have their own allegiances, and because there's this weird mix of warlords and militias and
savages
and remnants. There are not many savages in Twilight 2000. The world hadn't gone that much to shit. You still had,
just imagine Afghanistan in the 1980s. That's
Afghanistan, but Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and most of it was played in Eastern Europe. So
yeah, I only asked this because I'm trying to design my own game and I want more ideas. So I thought it's an apocalypse game, yeah. So
DM James with the new version, and not that because he's actually been, he was a former infantryman in Iraq. He's been through fire, and he said, "Oh, it really plays like it has the same feel in many cases." Well, okay, so he likes it. I've
heard DM Jim say that as well. Yes.
Yeah, the new version has almost like a base building component to it that was sort of just kind of hinted at in the old version. So that's kind of intriguing, where you kind of get to build your
stronghold.
Yeah.
I have the PDF, and I'll be honest, the One Ring, whatever came out with Free League. I mean, I have the PDF, the Free League one. I had the old box set from Twilight 2000, like, was it the late 80s, early 90s? But and I played it, and I died in a what was it? A fuel air burst. I was like, my friend, like, really? Anyway, he killed us off in like the first session. I was like, well, you should have known. Well, how am I supposed to know? Anyway, so we did that. Then the other one that we did was, but the One Ring under Free League, I tried reading it. I didn't like the artwork that much. I did not like the DM screen.
We know why the artwork is the way it is, right? In the new version, it's all based on Swedish military manual illustrations. Yeah, they mimicked. They wanted to mirror that experience of reading through the military manuals with all the illustrations and stuff. Yeah.
No, I meant the One Ring, the Twilight.
Oh, I thought you were still talking about. No. Yeah, I was gonna say One Ring has nothing to do with Swedish military manuals, or things are really different in Sweden.
That's just what they want you to think.
Well, if their army has like rings of power and hobbits, I may have to move.
You're revealing a national secret.
Yeah.
Will you recruit a 51-year-old nerd?
Well. Here's the problem: is that they're going to use Elfbeard's beer to hold down the like Fenris,
Yeah.
No,
I can't help it.
What?
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just asking. The One Ring, like you're showing, I think was the first edition or so. The second edition that came out, I tried looking at. I could not, and I don't know how close it is, but it just that I didn't like the art and anything like that, so I couldn't get into the One Ring. I just like, no, not interested. I would rather play Merp or I don't know about the first edition.
So I love the way this book looks. and I love the art in it. I think it really
No,
sort
no,
of
no.
helps.
Show the art because I don't know what.
You
Remember, I'm
on the
talking
first
about
edition or
this back.
second?
No. See, that art is better than what they had in the other one.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's
go-
got
go-
the first. Yeah, the first.
Yeah. Go. Look at this. The second edition is very different.
Yes, the second edition is very different. Yes, I do have that as well, and I liked it. I like it. I haven't played it. I mean, it didn't floor me as like, oh wow, but yeah, it's good.
Okay.
I mean, look at this. That's great.
Yes, that. See again, that's something I would like to get onto the shelves of the library. You know, a handful of those core books that they put out, first edition ones. And rumor has it, I'll say one thing and then I will be silent again. Rumor has it that the whole advantage disadvantage that started within the One Ring, that first edition. That mechanic.
I need to have a look closer because I don't remember that coming up in our session. But I have to have a look closer at that one because I never played one session of that. Never.
Rumor.
Oh, see you, DK. DK's disappeared. DK had to go.
Later, brother.
And
Yeah.
Gingerbeard's got 10 minutes as well. All right. Okay. So while they're gone, we can insult them. Has anyone played? AB mentions a game called Aftermath. Anyone know about anything about that?
Played one session.
No, not familiar with Aftermath.
Never heard.
Aftermath is weird because it's a post-apocalypse, but I think I would almost call it in theme like proto Fallout, in that the whole idea is that a whole bunch of people were sequestered away in like survival shelters that had them in hibernation for a while to wait out the boom, and then you come out and you are very much on a survival budget when it comes to your equipment. Your starting equipment is whatever you can scrounge, and so there's some rolls, at least as far as I remember. Like I said, one session, and it was literally the character creation and let's start playing. So
you don't know anything about that one. Right. Oh yes, I've played one session of Pendragon and we died.
that's one that I really do want to play, just because I like the idea.
Yeah, we just got massacred. We got the wrong idea. I think we were underpowered for what we needed to do as well. So
that's the Arthurian one, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a variation on the Chaosium system.
Okay.
What
What about RuneQuest?
I've not played it.
I've played one session of that as well.
I own a couple editions of it, but I haven't played it.
It's just said that, like, oh, I'll have like 4 editions. Well, have you played it? Never. You're like, oh,
you're not wrong. I own 3 editions of one of the ones that I was going to mention, and that's it's called Mechan, and I've never played it.
But that's the Palladium one, right?
No, Mechan is by Artel Sorian before they even hiccuped Cyberpunk. They had a game called Mechan, which was a game of anime mecha combat. So it's kind of a niche game. But the neat thing is, from the very get-go, when it was just an indie published book that was hand-drawn art and everything, they had a full construction system for building mecha of basically any genre. Through their expansions, they went from whether it's the use form kind of, armored foot soldier all the way to like Voltron lions and stuff like that. And then they made a world where all of those things existed. But they came out with several editions, and it just kept getting better and better in terms of writing and system, to where the last edition of it that came out was 2 volumes for the rules. One was just the RPG rules, and the second volume was all the mecha construction. And they had simple mecha construction, they had complicated mecha construction, and then they had all of the neat thing was their DM advice was all about how to run a anime mecha series, and you outlined your campaign on this worksheet as a game aid, you could do it without it, but
Yeah.
of what series you were going to run and what your key points were, what your bad guys were going to be, and then it was played in terms of episodes of a season. So each campaign would be a season, and they had all the anime tropes. There was even a fun one for like when the character died. When a character died in mecha combat, you'd roll on this table to see if you just went up in a big explosion, or if you had time for a short soliloquy or a big heroic speech before you died, just like in the anime, where like, you may have killed me now, but I will be remembered by my fellows. Sieg Zeon, kind of a thing, from Gundam, and it was just a great game, and I never got to run it. I had like so many seasons, so many series written up, because you could play it from everything from street level up to Gundam level, up to Shogun Warriors level if you wanted to. I mean, you could play Transformers in there. Yeah, it was just about universal. I never got to play it. Never.
You know, another one, because I bought it because it was on sale. I mean, it's still on sale for like the last month, but of course, if you want a physical copy, the only ones are in the United States now, is Mutant Chronicles 2D20. And I think I bought like 16 books, and the shipping was more than the books. Because
I played the miniatures game of that.
well, it's the 3rd edition, and I'm looking at it. They don't have it in the UK, but they do have it in the United States for like $5.83 for the basic book. I'm like, holy! I mean, I was like, oh, and so that was one of those things that I thought would be interesting. I mean, if you have the books, why not? And I was like, it costs more probably in paper than anything else.
That IP had some legs. At one point when the miniature game was out, it actually captured 24% of GW's wargaming market.
Oh wow! The other one is, and I'm kind of curious because again, it's super cheap right now, is the Judge Dredd one. I don't know if anyone's played that one as well. Nope. Judge Dredd was one of those. Was like,
I had the old GW one from back in the day, but
I never got into anything to do with the Judge Dredd universe, 2000 AD and all that. It was quite big in the 80s over here, but I was never really much of a comics person, so I sort of avoided all of that and never really got into it. Maliki mentions having the Decipher Lord of the Rings books. I'm aware of its existence. I've never read it. I didn't hear great things about it, so I stuck with what I had in terms of MERP at the time, and then got Adventures in Middle Earth and the One Ring, and I think Decipher I completely ignored, but I didn't hear great things about it. So,
let's see. Another one I would like to try is, I have the book, and I may try running it. I don't know, this weekend, or I may just play my friend's game at the library. But Dungeon Crawl Classics. I mean, it seems so simple, but I've just flipped through the book and I like the ideas in it. But I've never played Dungeon Crawl.
That game's a hoot. It's fun.
I'm playing in DK's game of it. He wants to change the system because he's not getting to grips with all the tables. It's infuriating him.
Oh, okay.
There were too many tables for his liking, so he's thinking of changing it. But so far, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. DC's been a lot of fun. I like the bizarreness of that. It does the same job for me as Paranoia does, in that it's a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
It's a dose of silliness, a 2-hour dose of silliness once a fortnight.
And to be fair with this, I'm waiting for my Kickstarter to come in so I can get the because it uses the special dice, which I'm not a huge fan of. But since it has all those special dice, I'm going, if you can get the fan kits, hell, you can make it. I mean, those are super cheap. Whoa.
Hold up.
Yep.
Is that you, Squirrel?
I think I got rid of it. Okay.
That reminds it.
Again, I was on the phone. I apologize.
So I mean, I'm looking at but whenever it does come up, you can get Mutant Crawl Classics plus 2 sets of dice plus a GM screen, a hardback cover, and then an adventure for like $30. I'm like, that's a good deal. And then the DCC I think is $35.
That's not a bad deal.
To me, it's a great deal. I mean, you're like, oh, really? You can give me everything that I would have to buy anyway, and now you just make it really cheap. Yeah, I'll get that.
Yep. I got the Dungeon Crawl Classic. Their what was it? Jack Vance's Dying Earth Kickstarter. That's coming in.
Okay, good.
General nut. Going back to the whole art thing. I just want to make my opinion known on the subject of Larry Elmore. I think Larry Elmore's best work was the internal stuff, the black and white drawings he did in Beckme. I prefer those to his color work. I thought his color work felt too posed, too almost artificial in how it was posed. Something you'd imagine you'd see in a clothing catalog at times, in terms of the poses, sort of like, or didn't feel authentic. Whereas I think his black and white work in the Beckme books was just beautiful. I thought it was absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, Elmore, he's a good old Kentucky country boy because I met him several times at GaryCon. Nice person, good dude.
I've heard nothing but great stuff about
it. But no, I get it. I can see where you're coming from on your your
his
opinion.
Star Frontiers art is amazing.
You know what I really liked, and he admitted this. He loved to do landscapes. So the one that I remember for classics is when he does like the mountain valleys, and then he has like the dragon chasing the characters. He's like, "Oh, so you can let me draw all landscape, and then I just have to put these people in that are being chased." He's like, that was the thing he loved. I said, "Oh yeah, I love that." And there's a lot of great art. To be honest, this is what I find. Even though as much fun as we make fun of the early D&D, like if you look at the original stuff, boy, when you get into the Dragon magazine covers and you get into the later stuff, into the like Dragonlance and some of that stuff where the art really elevated to the next level, I've really enjoyed that. But the current stuff I'm seeing out of 5e, I thought the stuff at the beginning, like the Monster Manual and the DM's Handbook, was fine, but the more I watch it, the more and more cartoony it looks without having details.
For me, some of even the earlier stuff, fantasy art, D&D art, even sci-fi art or whatever. For me, it throws me back to when I was in 7th and 8th grade study hall, sketching, doodling, drawing my ideas. Yes, that's the nostalgic throwback for me. It was like, man, this is what I would have, this quality of art. This is what me and my buddies would have been puking out onto the page, having fun. So part of that, to me, I really enjoy seeing.
And how many of us here would see one of those old images and try and get that image into an adventure? Because it made you think, wow.
I still have to laugh because the Beholder is so bad in Monster Manual. It reminds me of one of those styrofoam balls that you stick pipe cleaners in, and you draw a little face. But there's a nostalgia, that you do miss about it, which is why I don't mind the OSE artwork.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just about to get to the more refined, nostalgic art. That really, really hits the sweet spot because it's like, wow, that's something I would have done in 7th, 8th grade. And if I would have kept that style and mode and have drawn or painted, sketched that for 20, 30 years and still kept it in that wheelhouse.
Yeah. I tried to mimic it and failed when I was 13. But
I set the bar too high because my favorite old school art was the Fiend Folio. That stuff is just so hard to reproduce. It's so heavy.
In the foot right out the gate.
Well, the Fiend Folio, I remember buying that from the Sears catalog. Which,
I bought it from Fred Myers.
but I bought it from a Sears catalog, so of course they had to ship it to Germany. And at the time I saw it, and I was like, wow, because boy, you want to think about taking back. Well, the cover was one thing, but what it really was the Grail. And the Cadre columns, and what was the pangolin or whatever, the one that detaches with her organs.
It just had a lot of really gruesome art, but also some really excellent full page stuff, and that heavy ink style. I just loved it.
Though I will say, of the four, I won't call them the four core books, the Deities and Demigods was head and shoulders above the Monster Manual, the DMG, and the Player's Handbook. I mean,
The thing with the data, what I liked about Data and Demigods is that one artist did each pantheon. So you'd have, for example, Rosloff doing one pantheon, Otus doing another pantheon, and so on. And it gave each pantheon their own style, their own image.
Which I thought that actually was a good move.
Now, I know you don't like buying PDFs, but I tend to buy a lot of PDFs from the from whenever they have it on either Humble Bundle or what's the other one? The Bundle of Holding. So some of these things, which is fine because I've even double dipped kind of thing where I don't have everything, and I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I'm looking at some of the stuff I have, which I love. But to be fair on this is, it was too close to exactly like the books. As if anyone remembers Lone Wolf, the series,
Just about, yeah.
The Cubicle 7 had it, and then I guess they couldn't come to an agreement for the. I was like, oh, okay, but it reminds me. But I actually liked reading some of it, but it was fairly simple, not quite what I want from a game system.
Well, it's designed to go into a book, so like a paperback type thing. So
Yeah.
Well, and I do.
Same with Fighting Fantasy. Same with Fighting Fantasy. Those books were a lot of fun, but as a game system, it's far too simple.
Yes, well, I mean, you can modify it, but it amazes me. The other one I'd like to try at some point is the Mutant Year Zero. Again, we're going over Free League here.
God, that game's on it's 8 millionth edition.
Print run. I don't know about edition, but yeah,
they've been that game's old. I was amazed, but it's only been available in its native language, so forever.
NYZ.
Yeah, it used to just go under Mutant.
That's I could be wrong, but I think I got I didn't. Sorry, I got Coriolis and something else for a friend of mine from Free League. Yeah.
Well,
but that was I think, the game that put Free League on the map, so to speak.
Well, what was it with Free League? If you learned how to buy stuff in July, I think it's June or July, they always have 50% off, and their stuff is top notch as far as customer service. I had a problem where a package disappeared, and I said, "Oh, okay, so they're going to resend it out." And so they gave me a refund because they're like, well, we don't have this adventure anymore. Like a day or two later, my box came in, and I said, hey, just letting you know, my box came in. They're like, oh, we better cancel the other one. And I said, well, you gave me this refund. And they're like, well, just keep it. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks.
Yep. Similar, same thing happened to me. Something happened to me a while back. Yeah, it didn't disappear. Well, yeah, it kind of did. And they said, well, we'll either refund you or send you a second package. I said, well, just send me a second package just in case the first one shows up. And as you said, it so happened to show up a few weeks later after the replacement showed up. And I told them, and they said, yeah, don't bother. It's yours. You lucked out.
They've been really great for that. I've liked the world of Symbaroum. I don't really like the mechanics of it, but I haven't played it. So
I have that one. I've played it twice. Haven't ran it. Yeah, it's something to get used to. I actually got the Symbaroum. I backed the Kickstarter for the 5e version of it.
I'm trying to think what other systems are out there that I would have loved to have played, but just never did.
I have one that is an odd one that falls into the category of I've played it, but I would like to play it with grown-ups.
Okay.
Mutant Ladders? No, what is it?
It's called Tales from the Wood.
Tales from the Wood.
And it's really niche. It was a free game. It's written by Simon Washburn over in the UK, and it is best. The elevator pitch is the Animals of Farthing Wood / Watership Down the RPG.
Okay.
You are playing non-anthropomorphic animals living in the wood that's kind of in the back end of whatever, like country UK village, right?
Yeah,
in the modern era. And you're just playing to survive. And I played it with my kids, and I thought I originally got it because like my youngest started, that was their first RPG at age 3 because they got to play a frog. But it has a very bare bones cosmology. Like there's this concept of the bane and the way. The bane is the corruption of man and the taint of man. And so like, livestock have the bane and rats and stuff have the bane. And it's all written from the point of view of the animals. So like roads are called, the Stone River, and they have their own interpretation of the roaring owls, was what they call automobiles, because in the middle of the night they swoop down with their glowing eyes and they make you dead.
Watership Down.
Yeah, it's Watership Down, Animals of Farthing Wood, Cold Moons, all those cool animal books that you grew up with. But I've only played it with kids, but I think it would take on a whole new life with mature, not like mature, but like people with non-kids sensibilities. Yeah, and because writing it as a GM was really interesting, because you come up with this. It's almost an interesting exercise in writing adventures, because you're writing adventures that key into an animal's sensibilities.
Yes,
there is a slight magic element, like they threw David the gnome in there, also kind of. So you've got every wood has a gnome that lives there, and he's in the game. You can have him as a PC, but I only allowed him as an NPC because I didn't want But like I did an adventure where there was a ghost that was killing people, and actually it was just a plastic shopping bag fluttering on the wind that had strangled a couple of animals or suffocated a couple of animals. And so the adventurers, who were a hedgehog, a frog, and I think a sparrow, all had to go. They're looking to figure out who freaked out this tweaky squirrel that was in the woods. And they I remember having to run an encounter where they had to go to the side of the road and meet up with the rats. And when they got there, the rats are all eating out of this styrofoam takeout container that's on the edge, and swilling ale out of a discarded can. And and they're all the toughs and the thugs. And then at one point there was a new stranger had moved into one of the cottages, and they're like all worried. And it was weird because they looked through his window, and he had animals pinned on his wall, and and they're like freaking out. And he's a veterinarian. But writing these things from the animal's point of view was just great. But the kids the kids didn't get it. The kids just didn't get it. And the game was written like, if you got in a fight, you were probably hurt, because most of the animals were small. The big animals existed, as many big animals as you have in the UK. But also, if you got shot in the game, it was game over. I think the largest animals you deal with in the game were probably the livestock. You go talk to the cows, and they reek to the bane, and they're like, "Oh, got any oats?" Yeah.
See, I have no interest whatsoever in anthropomorphic animals, but that sounds like fun.
It's a challenge because you don't have hands. Like, unless you're like something like a rat or a squirrel who has sort of hands.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. For me, it was weird because I'm used to what's in my backyard, and so I had to like read up on what you can have, what exists in the UK, or I just and I didn't want to like cheat and write it in the backyard of America because we still have bears.
Basically, the UK is just smaller and less poisonous.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in over here, it's like, and you walk into your backyard and you're killed by a rattlesnake, 3 scorpions, and a tarantula, and then the bear comes and eats you all.
I was no, I just find it funny.
Mouse card, I'd like to play that though.
Yeah, mouse card looks fun.
Well, you were doing anthropomorphic animals. Yeah, I cannot say that.
I can't say it either.
Anthropomorphic.
Yeah, anthropomorphic. Anyway, I was thinking, well, there went Pugmire, Monarchies of Mao, and then of course Mutant Year Zero, Gin Lab Alpha, and which finally came in for myself was Historia, which I like the art of Historia, but that's the dark.
Historia looks cool. I bought that. That looks cool.
Mine finally came in. Apparently, they forgot about me. I emailed them like, "Oh, yeah, they forgot to ship it to you. Here you go." And it finally came in. The artwork on that is gorgeous. I really love the look of it. it's Renaissance animals with it's a much grittier look. But if you look them up there, they look really cool. And then of course the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, or I'm sorry, After the Bomb now.
I was going to say After the Bomb, forgetting the OG. Because Major's Musings mentioned ages ago about riffs, and somebody else mentioned riffs. And it's like, has anyone actually played like a Palladium game?
It's on my.
I've
it's on my.
Another Strangeness.
It's on my list because I've heard so much about Palladium games, and I've never ever seen one in print here in the UK.
Robotech was the one that got me into it.
I played most of the Palladium games, even Recon. Have you ever played Recon?
Recon I really enjoyed, but that's because I grew up in the military.
Let's play Vietnam War, the RPG.
Before they smoked, they drank beer. But that was before it all got Cowabunga Pizza Party.
Eastman and Laird did the illustrations and the original TMNT book.
Eastman and Laird, before it got sold out, their graphic, their comics, whatever, black and white. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles smoked cigarettes, drank beer,
all had red bandanas.
They didn't just smack someone around and turn them over to the police. They hurt the bad guys. Yeah, it was before they kind of sold out or changed ways. So,
you know what? I don't. I just find it funny. Well, they sold out. Okay, I went. I don't blame them. They made plenty of money. More power to them.
No. I'm not holding against them. I'm just saying before it sold out and was changed into Cowabunga Dude Pizza Party style. Hey, go ahead, make your money.
They made a crap ton of money, and one of them married a penthouse pet of the month. So
go for it. I mean,
Well, actually, I'll be honest.
There's always the term "starving artist." Are you going to be a starving artist, or are you going to sell out and eat well?
Well, you know what? I
don't blame you.
I went to the local Comic-Con here, and it not, I think like 20 or 30,000 people go. Anyway, I went over there and they had him. And my son's a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan, and I said, "Hey, could you sign this and just put it to Connor?" Because my son because they know that if they put down the name, it lowers the value of their signature. But so he says, obviously you're not there to sell it, and he was so happy. And he's like, "Oh yeah." Anyway, really nice guy. The artist. Anyway, just want to say that. But I was trying to think of.
But After the Bomb is proto Rifts.
I hated Rifts, to be honest.
I had fun with it.
Well, I played Robotech, and then I went to Rifts, and nothing. It just bugged the hell out of me. And I said, "All right."
It's a kitchen sink RPG. It's hard to,
Well, I know Max is like, "Well, I don't like it with the Savage Worlds," and I went, "I don't know. I think it might be a better system than what they have with the Palladium." So Palladium has both good and bad aspects to it. The alignment system for Palladium is simply the best of any of the alignment systems I've seen.
That's what I've heard said.
I agree. I love it. Alignment system, Palladium Fantasy, Palladium Rifts, Palladium Books. I use that in every game. If there are alignments, I print those out and go, "Here's your alignments to pick from."
Well, they used real words, which is nice. Miscreant, aberrant, diabolic, principled, unprincipled, scrupulous. I have them all memorized.
Whatever, just of that alignment, what you're most likely to do. It just fits. It just lawful. I get it.
Examples. The other thing I like is they give examples of common stuff that we would have seen. This would be like Darth Vader. This would be like Luke Skywalker. This would be like Han Solo. I mean,
I have stacks of those printed out for any game that I've run or play. Well, run that has any type of alignment system. I say, here are our alignments. We'll deal with adjusting whatever the rules say about detect evil or detect this. We'll deal with it across it.
So Munchie Gecko just mentioned Star Frontiers. Yeah, we've been talking about Star Frontiers for a long time. I never played Top Secret, and part of the reason was I don't think that I could have ever run that correctly, but I would have loved to have played Top Secret.
We played it in such a wrong way because we were maybe 9 or 10. Halterstein, the very first adventure, which gives you an entire city map, it got Village of Hamleted. We robbed it and blew it up, and but again, we were 10.
well, I remember the Monaco, where they're talking about. I mean, with the Formula One race, car driving. I think they had an adventure with that, or at least a setting. I was like, oh, that would have been so cool.
Yeah, Top Secret was fun because it was James Bond, the RPG. I mean, my 22 caliber ballpoint pen and my laser watch.
Well, see, that's the great thing with Paranoia is your laser watch sometimes just lights up, and then other times it decapitates someone.
It might just cut your own hand off with it.
So, I'd say we should return the floor to those across the pond who were nice enough to host us.
Yeah.
Because us Americans have been yammering on forever.
I'm going to mention one now because we've just mentioned Star Frontiers and Top Secret from that sort of era. One I would like to have tried at the time, and I kept seeing it and thinking, oh, I could give this a go because I like the era, and that's Boot Hill. Did anyone ever play that?
No.
I had no interest because I was not a.
This is another one of those ones, or I have several editions of it.
It's a nice transition to westerns because there are some good western RPGs like Aces and Eights and Dogs in the Vineyard. Yes, I know Squirrel Hermit because I think you play Hackmaster, don't you? So yeah. I expected it from you.
There's a good one called Gut Shot that was written as a miniatures game, but it's so detailed. It's an RPG.
I'd play Deadlands. Deadlands.
I haven't done. Here's the other one I'm going to mention, which is
never played that, but yeah, the Wild West is a genre I've said it seems to be overlooked or it's just not out there, but it can be fun.
I have like 3 or so dozen cowboys back there somewhere.
So I haven't read all of it. I just flipped through it. Weird West, which is this 800. I think this is it. I could be wrong. Well, no, there's a couple of them. There's one of them that was like 800 pages PDF. Yeah, this is it. Weird West. It's an 800. I'm sorry. It says it's a 908 page PDF.
908 pages. No RPG has any business being that big in one book.
I've never played it. I just have a copy of it here. And I was like, there's another one. It's not Weird West. I forgot what it was called, but it was it looked interesting. But the guy basically decided to do. He also did Call of Cthulhu, Harlem. That guy. He's a black writer.
Sorry, my mind just went to Call of Cthulhu Harlem Globetrotters.
Well, apparently,
which we can then mash together with those meddling kids and special guests this week, the Harlem Globetrotters.
What was it, Chris? It's Chris something I can't remember, but he does the role playing games. He's a black writer, and apparently he did all sorts of stuff. It looked interesting, but I was like, holy hell. 800 pages. No, Weird West is 908 pages. And it's like, oh, wow.
For a game.
So it says rule book, and I kid you not, and I have it, going through here, and it says core rule book, and it says DCC compatible. And yes, the PDF says
DCC
908
is pretty
pages.
big, so.
So it says 908 pages, and to be fair, about 120 of that looks like adventures. The bestiary is like another 120 pages. Magic items.
Does it come with a full history of the Old West? I mean,
all right, guys, I'm going to cut in real quick. I must be off. It is time for supper here. Thank you.
Cheers, Squirrel.
Good seeing you guys, meeting you guys, and I'm not kidding. Message me. I want one of those shirts, brother. I want it. You guys take care.
One of these.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. These things are huge. Well, some of them. What's the other? But no, Old West things generally weren't my kind of thing. Though I kind of like these things that are. If you start having magic and stuff like that, that probably interests me more. But just to plain Old West.
I'm torn because I also was into Deadlands and stuff, but then we went through a phase on TV of Deadwood and the True Grit remake, and then it's like, oh, actually westerns are fucking cool, just straight up westerns.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
if
it's a
you
shame
want to
Hermit's gone because Aces and Eights, the shot clock was really cool.
All right,
It's like
Gingerbeard.
card-based shooting. Yeah.
Have you seen the movie Bone Tomahawk?
I have read the description. I don't think I can stomach it unless I'm in a particular mood.
It is basically Call of Cthulhu-esque meets a Western. Not that it's got tentacle monsters, it's just that, it's got spooky, creepy elements in a Wild West setting that are kind of unspeakable, unknowable.
I heard there are some pretty horrific scenes, so I'm not
There is.
particularly motivated.
I'm a kind of a horror buff, and even a couple of the scenes, I'm like, yeah, maybe. Yeah, okay, we're done. We're done with that scene. We can move on and watch the rest of it.
Okay, so, and I know, talking because I like pulp stuff more, and I'm trying to think because I've never played pulp Cthulhu, and I have only played Call of Cthulhu briefly many years ago, but I kind of like to see this Octon Cthulhu, along with the, because who doesn't love shooting Nazis and killing off eldritch horror.
I could see that being a lot of fun. I mean, my favourite the Cthulhu time period is Gaslight. I mean, if I was the Call of Cthulhu game I'm running in the channel at the moment, and the one we run on the Saturday, those are one shots. But if I was to run a campaign in the channel, it would be a Gaslight one. I'd probably crack open the Hudson and Brand book and base something on that, and have people going around Victorian England.
We're getting drawn off. I know we've talked about like Cthulhu settings before. I just one of these days I'd love to see like 1980s England Call of Cthulhu setting. White dog shit, Lucasade for healing.
Cthulhu calling.
Yeah. Because it's such a different vibe from all the American shows about like kids on bikes in the 80s and stuff. There is something different about it.
It's a different vibe over there in that time.
Public safety adverts about chip fan fires.
For me, it was literally going out into the woods in the local park to hunt down Satanists. We were a bunch of dumb kids. We're like, yeah, we heard there were Satanists in the woods. Let's go find them. Because that sounds smart.
Okay, I'm going to bring up I played a couple of these, but the Chronicles of Darkness for Promethean.
I don't think I've heard that one.
Totally lost.
So if you remember World of Darkness, which I know.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, remember the system they brought in after it, which was Chronicles of Darkness?
No.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's the way I kind of felt after getting it. Well, to be fair, it was probably a better game, but since it lacked all the meta plot and everything, it just felt like it was empty. I mean, compared to how World of Darkness was.
Wasn't that where they tried to roll it all into kind of one book, one volume sort of a thing? Like,
yeah. You buy the World of Darkness core book, and then you buy the other ones with it. But what I liked about Promethean was
reading the pop-up version of Tolstoy.
It was Promethean was you played the created, so you're talking like Frankenstein, stuff like that. And what I've always wanted to do was do that in a post-apocalyptic world, and set the players off in like the United States or somewhere, and they were going to start off in a university setting where they just wake up at the bottom, and they very similar to if anyone that's watched the first part of the Walking Dead, where he wakes up and he doesn't know and he sees everything. I was going to do that, but it was going to be set like 30 or 40 years after. And then you have the supernatural, but they're trying to figure out who they are. And I was going to give each one an individual item that would allow them to figure out their backstory. But that was the kind of thing, like you wake up with amnesia, but you're like, okay, where are we? What's going on? Who am I? And why do I have this thing? And they get to find out who they are. Anyway, that's a game I would like to play, but the trick always is getting players who want to play that.
I like scenarios with amnesia in.
Well, you know what? The other thing is, speaking of the is the other part I like to do sometimes for players that aren't sure what they want. Instead of having them build a character, I just give them the points, and as they go through the adventure, they just tell me what they want and how many points they want to put into it until they've used up all their points. And there's your character creation. That way they don't have to figure out, like, well, I got this skill and it wasn't used. That's up to you. But that way they can just sort of move along. Anyway, that's one idea I had of speeding up character creation. Like, here's your character. You put as many points as you want. What if I don't decide now. As we go through it, just use the skills that you're going through until you're out of skills. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I really would like to try. This is one I bought it and I can just imagine how great that would be Invisible Sun. But I haven't read anything about it just because I haven't sat down to really figure out the rules and things.
That's like me with the Conan book. I've sat down and figured out character creation, but nothing beyond that so far.
You know what, though? And I'm going to say this much. As much as we all talk about stuff, which is great nowadays, most of these games have a free quick start. And to really learn Conan, instead of going way down in the depth and details, just get to the quick start, which is like 40 pages. And it's only like 20 pages of rules. Just use that. You can run your players through. I think they've got 2 or 3 quick starts. They're all different with different adventures. And just check that out. And then you can go into the in-depth one, like, oh, well, now I can see all the other options that are in there.
Yeah, it's kind of like similar advice I given to DK in the past, like playing these retro clones of D&D. It's easy to forget that a lot of us went through different, like, white box, black box for me, and it was like a slow progressive journey that you get used to the rules, and it gets more and more complex as you add on more rules as you feel comfortable. And you've got a lot of people wanting to play like retro D&D now, and they just jump in with everything, like, oh my god, I've got to read the whole rule book. It's like, nah, man,
You don't.
There was a progression.
Take it easy. Yeah.
I also find that now that I'm older, it is hard as hell for me to digest a game system just reading it now. I used to just gobble this stuff up. I spent years living with like 5 other roommates who were all gamers. And it was like Gamertopia. We would just basically, what are we playing tonight? Not are we playing? It's like, what are we playing? I think if Joe mentioned we were wargamers and RPGers. We had people show up to our house we didn't even know. Hey, can we use one of your tables for Warhammer? Like, who the hell are you? How do you know that we have tables? Because there was enough of us out there talking about it. But yeah, and back then it was like, so many of my collections are incomplete because we would just buy this one giant gestalt of a game. Like, some guy would buy the Rifts rule book, and each of us would pick up a source book. And I can't digest. There's one game type. It's not even a game that I would like to run someday, and I've never. And that's a game where the players don't know what kind of game they're playing when they make their characters. Like, seriously, like make an everyman. And I'm not going to tell you what scenario we're running. Alien invasion, zombie apocalypse, whatever. Just make a guy.
Well, we'll see. And
then we'll see what unfolds. And even if it took like 2 or 3 sessions, like we're gonna play like a couple of things and just let you ruminate here a bit. And then,
Well, you know what? That's one of the things I really do like having with young or new role players. Is they don't think of the rules and try and optimize them, so you get more unique ideas instead of just saying, "What would you do in this case?" Don't worry about what's optimal. Don't ignore everybody else. What makes sense to you, and you'll come out. And sometimes they'll have much more original ideas, or things that can be done without worrying about, well, what's the DC and what's optimized for the system. And that's the one reason. To be fair, this is why I like the Conan system. I, as the DM, can make the choice of. That's standard. That's hard. That's epic. And then the player's like, oh, okay, and that's what I find out for there. But that's one nice thing about the newer players is they're not so ingrained that they're min-maxing everything trying to learn it. But I do feel that, like you're talking about Gingerbeard, OSC. Now as I get older, I'm like, no, we just want to play OSC. I don't have to with all the grappling rules and figuring out, does it have A, B, C, D, or E flying? Does
anybody ever remember Time Lords, the RPG Time Lords. It was advertised in Dragon all the time.
No.
That was a game that had you make yourself as a character. Because the whole premise of the game is you and your friends are just sitting around and a portal in time opens up. And the character generation was all these exercises to go through to figure out what your stats were. Like, hold 2-gallon milk jugs out to the side. How long can you hold them there? There's your strength.
But I know that was one of the things I liked about the old World of Darkness is it told you like how strong your character was.
No, this is just funny and fun because you're
Yeah.
making yourself, and you had to go through this set of tasks to like figure out what your stats were. Your stats, not your character, yours.
No.
What grade in high school or college have you stopped? Have you finished?
Well, what was it? It was the Fantasy Flight one. Was it Into the World series or something where they had 5 different books? One was like Space Aliens and Cthulhu and like Zombie Apocalypse.
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name of the game.
I can't remember what they were called, but basically you played your own character. But I always think it's funny because my friend and I were talking about making our characters. Oh, this must have been 30 years ago. He's like, well, what did you have? I said, well, I have firearms. I'd have this. He's like, most people don't have firearms. Like, I'm from the South. We all have firearms.
Going back to that thing about not knowing the game and not knowing whatever. I like to see a bit of feedback when I run a game, and it's nice to see General Nut saying this because this is about last Thursday's Call of Cthulhu game, and tomorrow night there's a couple of players in that group who've hardly ever seen Call of Cthulhu before, and the adventure I've chosen, the characters, they begin with blank character sheets. The characters all have amnesia, don't know who they are, where they are, who they're with, why they're there. And it's actually worked out perfectly because the players don't know the rules. It doesn't matter because they don't even know their characters, and they're just role playing naturally, given the scenario. And what happens is someone says, "Okay, can I try and pick that lock?" They'll roll the skill, and I'll tell them what their skill is after they've had a go at doing something. So, and they can get an idea once they find out their character's profession, who their character actually is. When they find some ID and stuff, it'll give them an idea of what their character's skills are likely to be. So that's how it's all sort of piecing together.
All right, let's see the other one that we're talking about because I see Handmaster, but Rollmaster was one that I kept seeing advertised all the time in Dragon Magazine. Never played it. What was it? Rollmaster, Space Master, Arms Lock, Claw Lock, all those.
Oh, that's Harnmaster, by the way, not Hammaster.
Oh,
Hammaster
okay.
would probably be the funny version of Harnmaster.
Yes.
I pilfer. The only experience I have with Harn is pilfering the supplements for castle maps and information on how to build medieval settlements because that was simulationist RPG at its best. Worst. I don't know. I didn't play it, but yeah.
I didn't play that either. I played Paranoia once, and I read some of the stuff, and I see. But like everything is, you have to get good players, and sometimes it's like, no, I'd rather do this. Like, okay, that's fine. That's why I try sucking in players into like, we'll just play one session of this game because if they do one session and like it, it's fine. If they don't like it, it gets put off to the side, and that's the only way I've been able to get people try new games.
I remember Harnmaster, like the armor system took into account how you layered your armor up. Like you were wearing a gambeson, and over that you had plate, and then, or you were wearing, a linen, tunic with your chain over it. Is it a chain shirt or is it a chain hauberk?
Yes,
because it was all that early medieval level of tech too. So plate probably wasn't in there except for maybe like, some plates, like early plate, but they just had the layered armor and they had an actual faith system. Like your cleric could only do stuff if he actually did stuff. So like you had to make your god happy.
Sounds good to me. I mean, Rollmaster wise, a friend of mine had Rollmaster, I had MERP, which was the Rollmaster Lite. And to be honest, MERP was too much for us when we were very young. So Rollmaster would have gone far too far. We tried making characters, MERP's great now. I mean, I'm running a game of it over Roll20 and it's working beautifully, but I wouldn't want to even try Rollmaster. It's just got too many tables, far too many tables.
As a kid, I love the simulationist aspect, but as I get older, I'm like, no, I want
As
more
a kid,
abstract.
you had nothing but time.
Well,
So-
well, the problem is you want to actually model reality. Well, you know what? I model reality for real life, and I'm like, you know what? Sometimes I would like to, let's just go with the, I want the story. As much as everyone talks about it. The other one I haven't played though, looks interesting, was Index Card RPG. I was hearing good things about that.
I've heard it's talked about. I've never seen it. But I have to admit, since I have my local game shop is about 8 miles away, and I haven't set foot in there since COVID hit. So
Yeah, my new
Well-
local game store is 30 minutes away from me. So
Well, and for me, when I did the local game store here, it really caters mostly to Magic the Gathering, just being honest about it, and some of the other stuff. I did get a game of Iron Kingdom's role-playing game, which was fine, but it wasn't one that really grabbed me after playing it for a few sessions. But I hate it. I don't want to have to drive I'll drive half an hour to my friend's house. I don't want to drive half an hour to a game store to play. Usually because when I want to play is when Magic the Gathering. That's when they have their tournaments and stuff, and it's way too loud and noisy. And the other thing is, the games I'm interested in, and I'm not faulting the owner for any of this, but you got to be honest about it. Is it worth? They can't have 100+ books. That's just not economically feasible for them. So
True.
So Geek and Gingerbeard, any other games?
Any other games? To be honest, no. We've touched on all the ones I wrote. I wrote down 6 on the front page. We've mentioned all of those, and 3 on the second page, and we've mentioned all of those. We've mentioned all the ones I'd like to try, or have tried once and have never got to play again.
I think the other question is settings. Because a lot of it is it can be a great rule system. If I don't like the setting, I'm like, nah. Or if it has a great setting and I don't like the rule system, I'll probably say, okay, I like to have a different system, but your setting's awesome.
I hinted earlier on. I think that to me the setting is more important than the rules. If I can't get myself into the setting, the game is doomed. Especially if I'm running it. I will juggle with rules to make them work for me. But if a setting just doesn't fit the way my mind works when I'm running a game, then it ain't going to happen. And for me as a player, I'll play almost anything as a one shot, but as a campaign, I have to like the setting. I have to.
Speaking of which, I'm going to go for 2 more here for Free League, because you can tell I like Free League a bunch. Coriolis looks interesting, and I'd have to run through that. That's not one that really grabs me, but that's one that I could warm up to. But Vaesen, or however you pronounce that.
I was just going to go through the R-O-O, trying to work out which one is the AE.
Yeah.
How do you spell it?
VAE
SSEN,
but it's a Scandinavian, so the AE is probably conjoined.
Well, in English, it would be pronounced Vaesen.
And if I remember correctly, I thought it was. The problem is like in what is it? Latin, isn't it? Vaesen. Anyway, or something like that.
Vaesen. R-O-O.
Julius Caesar would be Julius Kaiser, wouldn't it?
Yes. Which is why you get Kaiser for the Germans.
Exactly.
And Tsar
I also picked up Vaesen recently, and I would quite like to play it. But I was also wary that I had 2 weeks in Norway, and it seemed like I just turned into some sort of Scandi dickhead who was obsessed with their culture.
You've got the beard and the hair already. I mean, and Elfbait could join you as well. I mean, you've both got that Viking sort of look about you.
But they are bringing out another book about based on British mythology, so that would be more palatable.
I wish I could remember the name of it, but evidently there's I think it's a 5th edition setting being written by Eastern Europeans for a Slavic setting, and I'm like, that's a mythos and a setting I would dive head first into, but I can't remember the name of the game, so I can't find it. They kickstarted it, and I'm like, I don't pay all that much attention to Kickstarters. I used to a lot, and stopped because it was saddening. But
the person to ask about that would be DM James if he's still about. He's very much into Slavic stuff.
Well, speaking of Slavic, don't forget the Witcher RPG, which I've never played. It looked okay, but
I can't do that because it would mean playing something that's cool and everybody's into it.
Are you talking about the original Polish Witcher RPG or the other one that came out?
The Artelis Lorien, or whichever one that they have.
The one that
now.
they wrote with
With Mike Pondsmith.
Mike Pondsmith's son wrote that one, actually.
I picked it up and I was gravely disappointed. I think it was basically that CD Projekt Red, the agreement was they made the Cyberpunk game and the Pondsmiths wrote the RPG, and then the Pondsmiths were like, you made a shitty game, we can't be asked to write your RPG, and CD Projekt Red threatened to sue them. So they just cranked out a really shit Witcher RPG.
Yeah, well, Artel Sorry and I have a bit of a bone to grind with them, but
didn't they do CD Projekt? Didn't they do the Cyberpunk Red?
Cyberpunk Red is actually pretty good. But I mentioned Mechan earlier.
Yes.
One of the Kickstarters they did that, to my knowledge, has still not shipped, and we're looking at maybe 7 years. They did Mechan Zero, which was a reboot of Mechan with Mike Pondsmith's big, heavyweight, ability, and they were going to revisit the original world of Algol, which is where the original indie press version of Mechan took place, and it bloated with stretch goals. And at the same time, I kept seeing him post all this nifty, cool stuff that he was doing with Cyberpunk. And I just felt like my Kickstarter dollars went to fund Cyberpunk. It's like, don't give me project updates for your other RPG in the updates for your Kickstarter that you haven't delivered for 5 years. But anyways, old 80s. Oh, good.
I haven't played Cyberpunk Red. That's why I was just curious, because that was one of those that I went, Did
you ever play 2020?
I had the book for 2020 and people loved it, but I think that really Shadowrun it could do everything that I wanted, and I could just strip out the, I hate saying it because I already had the Shadowrun. I just strip out the magic and I have Cyberpunk 2020.
Yeah, but Cyberpunk 2020, I think, if I could, it's going to lead into why my grumbles about Cyberpunk Red. Cyberpunk 2020 was quintessentially a science fiction game in that it had all of the gear. I feel like science fiction games are best when they have the stuff, because you're not going to have magic powers and you're not going to have other super abilities. So all your characters, your skills, and your stuff, right? Give me stuff. Science fiction feels more science fiction-y if I've got stuff. What's Star Trek without transporters and tricorders and phasers and stuff like that? So Cyberpunk 2020 had all of that. And Cyberpunk Red genericizes a bunch of that. So instead of going, I have the Militech XV-19, assault rifle, I've got a heavy assault rifle. And it was so great shopping through the equipment books back then, going through, okay, this assault rifle has one more rate of fire and a magazine capacity that is 32 rather than 24. That one has a -1 to hit, but it has, it's got a longer range. They'd all be categorized as heavy rifles now in Red. But
the best game for stuff was always Car Wars. Yeah. So much stuff in there.
I heard you mentioning in your thing, you mentioned in, I think, one of your videos, Car Wars, and you were talking about running it as an RPG. Maybe that was earlier in this one, because I'm ADD as fuck, and ADD is fucking, that's 3 years ago, as far as my mind is concerned. But you mentioned wanting to run it as an RPG. Wasn't that auto duel though?
Yeah, I think it was. I think I never got auto duel though. I would just tinker with standard Car Wars rules and play with that.
I'm going to bring up something. When you talk about heavy weapons and stuff, and having done enough with the with firearms, the more I go through them, I'm like, look, all you need is a heavy rifle, and so these are the calibers, and then you just put a big long list of different things in there. Like, oh, okay, that was the problem that I had with a lot of these. Because I ordered a custom rifle. I'm like, this is what I want on it, and I put that, I put my little checklist down. I'm like, I really don't care. I could buy this or this one. Well, what's the difference? What's the relative difference if you're shooting it? Nothing. So that's why I don't mind like light rifle, medium rifle and heavy rifle. I think all too often, especially since most people who are doing weapons don't even understand them, that they're like, oh, but it's got so much further. Like, the bullet's the same.
It's the system that makes it important, though.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So in Cyberpunk, when you're talking about having skill wires and reflex wiring and stuff, the +1s and stuff count. So.
Yes. Yeah. Well, no. I mean, I understand that, but
that's why the weapons having individual statistics and being tweaked, because also it's all about the rule of cool and being edgy as fuck in that game. And so, like, having I've got my suppressed, 40 caliber, automatic rifle that only a guy with a cybernetic frame can fire.
Well, no, I agree with that. But if I'm thinking the old Shadow,
but you don't get that if you just have heavy rifle, light rifle kind of stuff.
Well, I'm saying,
anyways,
if you do that, but then you have all the different attachments you can put on it.
They do have that in Cyberpunk Red. Yeah. In Cyberpunk Red, they have that. Okay. But what do you want to do more as a player? Pick a heavy rifle or pour through a list of really fucking cool guns and buy the one that speaks to your personality.
Yes. I understand the idea for it. I'm just saying, that things have become so modular for
I have a feeling that's going to change with their equipment book coming out. So I feel like they may have genericized it in their core rules and then they're going to expand on it. The coolest thing they did was make net running something that you can play while you're playing the game, instead of everybody goes off and gets a sandwich while the net runner is net running. So
okay, well, you just sold me right there. Because I always loved it's like every edition we are fixing hacking or running, and you're just like, no, you didn't.
Remember, speaking of games that we've never played, late 80s, early 90s, I think it was when it came out, there was a couple of games. Talislanta.
I heard about it.
Their sales pitch was no elves. Their idea was basically none of the standard fantasy races were in that world. But what the catchphrase doesn't tell you is that there's literally 64 million different player races in that world, because every kingdom is a different race. And it's cool. It's like this weird world of stuff. And there was another one called Atlantis, and I originally grabbed it because I thought it was a third-party D&D book, but it ended up being a kind of a D&D derivative, and it even had conversion rules in the back. But it was the most dialed-in old-school RPG that I'd ever run into. 7 different kinds of magic with rules on here's your circle magic and your thaumaturgy and all of this stuff, and it was 8 kinds of fighting men and 7 kinds of scoundrels. And a monster manual that was illustrated by Sienkiewicz of Marvel New Mutants fame.
Well,
Gingerbeard knows who I'm talking about.
Yeah, Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah, crazy. What's going on in this panel, Sienkiewicz?
Well, that could describe a lot of Marvel artists over the decade.
He's got to be one of the biggest in that regard, though.
Superheroes just never interested me because I always wanted stuff. It was I'm trying to think of, we've gone through so many different systems. Okay,
there's a lot of games to play. That's
too many. There's too many.
Well, and how many editions, to say Shadow, I'm like, okay, well, first, second, and fourth are very different, and so is D&D. Like first and second, pretty much cross compatible, no real issues, minor tweaks here and there. Like, okay, no big deal. But when you get to third and fourth and fifth, they're like none of them are compatible with anything previously.
No.
So.
Thing with me with all editions in games is I struggle so much to learn a game and learn. I don't want to switch to another game very quickly. I mean, at the moment, I have to. I want to run as much Call of Cthulhu as possible because it's the game that I have learnt fully most recently.
I think that's also why I want simple systems. Like for Conan, is I don't feel hindered by it. I look over, I make a calling, and we move forward. Same thing with Mutant Year Zero. That system, make a calling, move forward. If I say, oh, you get a couple minus modifiers, it's not going to be bogged down. I'm not going to fight with players. It's all, they know it's kind of fiat anyway, as long as it makes reasonable sense. If I say, well, you know what, you're shooting this, like, well, yeah, but you're hanging upside down and there's smoke and you're firing at an alien bouncing back and forth in a narrow area. Okay, you get -4 dice. They're like, oh, okay. Like, okay, that's it. But I remember in first edition and second edition, God, we would fight over the pluses and minuses and flip through dozens of pages. And I went, yeah, I'm just too old for that now. I'm like, we're going to make a decision to move on. And because the Conan 2D20, again, and the Mutant Year Zero, that makes it very easy for me to do that. And I'm not worried about, like, am I making exact positives or negatives? They're just like, okay, that sounds reasonable. Let's move forward. And that's, I think as I get older, I don't want to have to do it. Look at your character sheet. How many dice are you rolling? And Mutant Year Zero, roll a 6 or above. I mentioned above for Forbidden Lands because you can get some numbers above 6. But, okay, anything that's a 6, automatic success. Anything below, you can re-roll it, but that's going to cost them. Okay, very simple to teach players and very simple to move on. Actually, so is Blades in the Dark. That's not too bad. But I will say as much as I don't feel as comfortable running it all the time, and do not run that with a small group.
When you were talking about all the Blades games, I was hoping you'd mention Blades in the Dark because that's the one that I'm most interested in.
Well, that was the first one I brought up as one I want to learn.
Ah,
yeah,
really?
Yeah, you mentioned that, and then I was mentioning. Actually, it's a fairly flexible system. I mentioned 4 different ones, all different. You got Blades in the Dark, you got Band of Blades, Scum and Villainy, and then Wicked Ones. And then there are a few others. I think they got Cyberpunk and other stuff. It's a very flexible system, but you have to have a DM that's willing to make certain calls. And I think that's where it's a bit harder, is figuring out where things work. And I can say this much. If you get too many players, things cascade in their direction. If you get too few players, it cascades in the other direction. So
what's the optimal about 4 or 5 players?
I think to be fair, I think that's about optimal. I wouldn't play with any less than 3.
Right.
If you're playing with 1 or 2, I don't think it works out well. But I think 4 would be good. I think once you get if you get up to 6 or 7, boy, you would really watch that cascade in a player.
Blades in the Dark is the whole thief heist one, isn't it? So you need the whole Ocean's 11. Can you do it with 11 players?
Well, here's the other thing I like about Blades in the Dark. Just by reading it, I haven't played that one. I played the Scum and Villainy one. But you have different factions. And as you do things, you have positives and negatives. And so now, I'm not sure exactly how much role-playing everything goes into, so just be aware of that. It may not be so much haggling right there, because it kind of works like you post-plan rather than pre-plan. Like you come up to a guard, and so then you say, well, you know what, I'm going to do this, and you roll like a stress die. You go, okay, you know what, I'm going to say that that yesterday I talked to the guard, found out that I was dating his sister, and because of that, he says, sure, come on in. And that's one of the ways you go, oh, okay, that's the way the Blades in the Dark works, is you throw people in, and then they have to backtrack on why something would have occurred. if they want to
Which
get
is
past the dark.
it's funny because it kind of works like heist movies actually work.
Yes.
I know the downside of heist is like, oh well, Rick and Morty did that one episode that fucking mocked heists, and now heists are dead to everyone. I
Yeah.
fucking love heist scenarios,
Yeah.
and it's still fun. And when you get into like when we're generally playing D&D, anything that can potentially turn into a heist scenario, I've always been like, yes, fucking yes. What are we gonna do?
Well, and you have two phases. You have the adventure phase, and the DM generally decides when it's going to be over. You really have to do everything on the fly, which works. Just have a general idea of what you want. There is no, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. You go, okay. And when you feel that the players have accomplished their task, you probably cut it short. And at the end, it's just like most movies where, okay, you're running away from the bad guys. You jump out the window into the canal and you swim down and you wave to them. And then you get like a minus for whatever their group is. And then whichever group didn't like, you give them a plus. And then you have a post, how do I want to say it? A post game, which is figuring out what your players are doing. So that's the only negative to it is if you don't like doing the post planning. Like, well, I'm going to be learning this over, till the next adventure. I'm going to be doing
The
this.
downtime stuff.
Yeah.
I like that sort of thing. I do like that sort of thing.
My only issue I always had when I was hearing about it is so it's an RPG, and I'm assuming it assumes campaign if you've got like this faction play. How well, because it's clearly built for the heist, how well does it handle things like the reprisal? Like when the gang that you've pissed off comes after you, how does it handle that? Because it seems everything I've heard about it is all about how it's all built for the heist. But how do you handle those other things like the fallout from things and the developments that come from that?
Well, you would do the pluses and minuses, and then usually you will. And it's been a while since I read the book. To be fair, it's been a couple years. I got it. I thought it was really cool. But the other part, it's one of those that have to go reread to. But what I would do is all of a sudden, if you say, "Oh, they're going to attack your base or your hideout," is suddenly you would come over. And then you would go, the first thing you do is there's a loud explosion. All of you are in there. And, let's say that the bolts are firing out and everything else. He says, what are you going to do? That's how your next session would start. That's exactly what you do. Is you don't.
I suppose in the instance of sort of like I think the flashbacky post planning, they're like, I grab my gun that I've had concealed in the wall boards, and I decide to start. I flip the switch, and the electric fence lifts up.
Please, you old geek, put grumpy old Slan's latest comment on. Elfbait is asking about Reservoir Dogs. Yes, that's a fucking perfect description.
Yes,
that's the reverse heist.
and that's exactly how you would play it. Is you would immediately go backwards and do, it's like everything that you've seen on series. Where all of a sudden,
that was my question: is how does the game handle that? Because that's the inevitable outcome of those movies in campaign form.
I mean, if you ever remember Firefly, they might suddenly have it where the series will start with like a gunfight, and they're like, "Well, how did we get here?" And you look back, and you might flip back and forth that way. It seems like it's hard to kill off characters, but I found out that you get kind of a death spiral. And I had to make sure the players just didn't die because I didn't want to end the game too soon.
But heist movies are not always so heavy on death, though. A lot of times they're heavy on getting just caught. Or effed up, but not dead.
Well, to be fair, I did on Scum and Villainy. They landed on a planet. They were finding a strange thing. They were, hey, go investigate this. If it's your first time playing it, that's what I'm saying. Is you start going, well, this spiraled way out of control, and I didn't think it was that bad. Their vehicle got smashed to bits. They hobbled into the what I want to call it, the temple, which my friend just could not. And I guess this is my fault too, where I'd say, all right, all you see are echoes of the whatever beings that had created this, and you see them just go through a loop over and over. He says, well, I tried talking to them. They're just echoes. They're not real. Okay, I'm going to try talking to them.
You Prometheus to them.
well, yes, very, very, very similar. Where you'd see something run down the hall. Yeah, that was kind of the idea. Was for that. And all they had to do was go pick something up. But yeah, it was. I enjoyed the Scum and Villainy aspect because I like the space stuff. like I said, is it would work pretty well if you like to do the heist movies and you love Victorian. It has that feel. And Blades in the Dark it has ghosts and vampires and a few other things in there. They're trying to keep out the ghost from the outside.
Yeah,
and so
the
whatever.
city is surrounded by some sort of field or something like that, or whatever.
Yes,
It was
yes.
that whole Victorian ghost thing which attracted me. I mean, I like the Victorian era as a setting. I think it's very evocative.
Well, here's the funny thing: as things die, they have to immediately come clean it up and try to scour the ghosts so they don't cause problems within the city. So like, well, if you kill someone, then they have to try to report it so they don't get a ghost, because whenever someone dies, a ghost basically appears. So they have to clean it out. There's a group that does that. I think they have a couple of side things. That was one. I really wish they had kind of expanded it out more. It's like they do one thing and then they never touch it again, and that's the one negative part about it, which is great if you only want to buy one book.
Anyhow, it's coming up to midnight here in the UK, so I'm afraid you will know by now what that means. It's coming towards a time when we have to close. So what I want from each of you now is focus on one of the games that we've mentioned so far, and we'll go around and say which one you most want to play of the ones you've never played, of things you've mentioned.
Of things we've specifically mentioned.
Yeah, we've all mentioned quite a few. Yeah. We've all mentioned quite a few. And for me, I am going to say it is, I would say, Blades in the Dark. That's the one I most want to play of things I've never played before. And this discussion now has only just made me want to play it more.
For me, I think it's going to sound weird. It's got to be the Tales from the Wood with like people over 10. Because I think that game would take on a whole new life.
It would become Watership Down. Watership Down's dark at times. And
yeah,
dark.
Man, yeah. Animals from Farthing Wood is also fucking dark.
Like, yeah, and that's the thing. Those games, those stories. I mean, they're full of really cool pathos and action, and you just don't have hands.
Okay, well, I'll bring out. I just forgot what I was going to mention. I'll bring out I hate saying it because it depends on the group and what they want to do. I would love to play Pugmire, just because it's lighthearted and I get kind of tired of the whole depressing, gritty aspect that we always see in the games. And then, of course, the that's what I'm thinking that I would like to play, because it's lighthearted. We don't have to worry about it too much. And then the other one I'd like to do is John Carter of Mars as a player. Just to see how it runs. Even if I hate it, at least I know how it runs, and I can feel I can give a fair assessment.
Ginger?
Pugmire as well. What have we been talking about Pugmire? No one's mentioned Redwall. Like, I fucking love the Redwall books. So much growing up. Fuck you, fairies, for destroying anthropomorphic animals. Absolute dicks.
That is a banner call of mine as an 80s anthro animal fan. When TMNT or Albedo Anthropomorphics, I don't know if you ever if that even made it over there. It's like gritty science fiction with anthropomorphic animals, and it's not fucking furry.
Yeah.
And Squirrel and General Nut, look out for my MERP game, which will be starting basically when my AD&D game finishes. When the current module finishes, I'll be switching over to MERP for a bit. So look out when it's an option to join in with that. I'll be running it on a Saturday night. So you're more than welcome to join in. But on that note, I'm going to call it for tonight, because I've got to be up in work for 8 o'clock in the morning, which is 7 hours 42 minutes from now.
Oh, well. Me too, but I work from home, so I'm going to be working off my sofa tomorrow.
So, and I'm going to check out that Wicked Ones as well, so that I've got that written down for something to play with tomorrow. So, thank you all once again for joining. Elfbait, Gingerbeard, Omen Owl, Squirrel Hermit, and DK joined us earlier. Thank you all in chat for keeping us all going, and I'll see you all on next week's stream. Good night, all.
Have a good night.
Check out my Gary Bay spoof video as well.